Excellencies, distinguished guests and participants, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the Asia-Pacific Regional Consultation on the priority theme for the 67th session on the Commission of the Status of Women. This year's theme is Innovation and Technological Change and Education in the Digital Age for Achieving Gender Equality and the Empowerment of All Women and Girls. I'm Jessica Murphy, Associate Social Affairs Officer with the Gender Equality and Social Inclusion section of ESCAP, and I will serve as the MC for this regional consultation. This regional consultation is jointly convened by ESCAP, the United Nations entity for gender equality and the empowerment of women, UN Women, in collaboration with the International Telecommunication Union, ITU, the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, and the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF. We are very honored to be joined today by representatives of so many ESCAP member states and representatives of civil society, academia, intergovernmental organizations, UN entities, private sector, as well as other esteemed partners and colleagues. Before we begin, I will briefly go over the agenda and the expected outcomes of this meeting. Today we will have the opening of the consultation and 2 substantive sessions. There will be a morning coffee break, lunch break, and afternoon break. Tomorrow, we will have 2 substantive sessions in the morning and a review and discussion of the recommendations in the afternoon. Tomorrow, we will also have a morning coffee break and lunch break. The 4 substantive sessions will focus on the following themes. First, ensuring meaningful connectivity to close the gender-digital divide and promoting gender transformative technology design, development, and deployment. Second, fostering inclusive education in the digital age and promoting women and girls in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM, education and careers. Third, implementing economic, labor, and social policies that ensure women and girls are not left behind in the digital age, and leveraging financing for inclusive digital development and gender transformative innovation. And fourth, addressing online and technology-facilitated gender-based violence and discrimination, and protecting the rights of women and girls online. Each session will consist of 3 segments. First, an overview presentation of the theme, then a panel discussion, and finally plenary discussions. 45 minutes have been allocated to both the panel discussion and the plenary discussions. During the plenary discussions, participants will be invited to provide inputs towards the recommendations. Please note that due to the large number of participants, we have a 2-minute limit for interventions and may not be able to respond to all requests to speak. Further information is available in the participant guide that was shared prior to this consultation. The recommendations will feed into the global CSW67 discussions and can inform membership contributions to the agreed conclusions. A few notes for our online participants. If you have not done so already, we kindly request that you rename yourself to include your full name, organization, and country. To participate in the plenary discussions, please use the chat box function. Due to the large number of participants, we will not be able to recognize those who use the raise hand function. If you experience any technical problems, please use the chat box to ask for assistance. We have auto-generated closed captions for this event that you can enable in your Zoom settings at the bottom of your screen. Kindly note that as we are a large group, all attendees will be muted and their cameras switched off, with the exception of attendees who are requested to speak during the plenary session. We also wish to inform you that this meeting is being recorded and that the recording will be made publicly available after the conclusion of the meeting. Excellencies, distinguished guests and participants, I now have the honor of inviting Ms. Chai Chai, Officer in Charge of the Social Development Division of ESCAP, to deliver her opening remarks. Ms. Chai Chai, please, the floor is yours.
Distinguished representatives, civil society partners, dear friends and colleagues, on behalf of ESCAP, and together with Ms. Sarah Nips, Regional Director AI of UN Women, it is a great pleasure to welcome all of you to the Asia-Pacific Regional Consultation on the priority theme of the 67th session of the Commission on the Status of Women. This year's theme, Innovation and Technological Change, and education in the digital age for achieving gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls focuses our attention on the increasing digitalization of societies. Digital transformation has immense potential to increase access to information and services and improve economic and social outcomes, particularly for those who have been left behind in development efforts. While some innovations and technological changes have contributed to reducing inequalities for women and girls, without sufficient policy guidelines and interventions, these changes also have the potential to exacerbate inequalities in the digital age. In Asia and the Pacific, women and girls are less digitally connected than men. 61% of women uses the internet compared to 67% of men. In low and middle income countries in the region, women are 20% less likely to own a smartphone or to use the internet on a mobile device compared to men. Lack of access to technology is both a symptom of and contributes to the underrepresentation of women in science, technology, engineering, and math, that is, STEM-related education programs and jobs. Many education systems fail to challenge gender stereotypes that depict the digital sphere as a male domain, leading to fewer women in STEM careers. For example, in the Asia-Pacific region, women account for less than 10% of the cybersecurity workforce. The digital age also creates new risks for gender-based violence. Women and girls are more prone to online violence and are disproportionately influenced by it. The incidence of cyber violence surged during the COVID-19 pandemic, with wide-ranging and devastating impacts for the individuals and society. Dear participants, colleagues, let us not repeat the inequalities of yesterday in today's digital age. Innovation and technology must instead be used as a means of achieving gender equality and empowering all women and girls. To do this in the Asia-Pacific region, there are several key actions for consideration. First, we must achieve meaningful and universal connectivity to narrow the gender-digital divide and fulfill the commitment of leaving no one offline. As digitalization is revolutionizing the ways people engage in social, economic, and political processes, lack of digital and internet access further marginalizes those who are already in a vulnerable position and excludes them from sharing the benefits of the digital transformation. Targeted policies as diverse as subsidizing the cost of devices and data, removing barriers to registration for SIM cards, and redistributing unpaid care and domestic work can all contribute to narrowing the gender-digital divide. Second, we need to build more inclusive education systems and labor markets to increase female representation in STEM-related studies and professions. It is key to integrate a gendered lens in education, encourage female students to pursue studies in STEM-related areas, and promote women's participation in STEM professions, especially at leadership and management levels. Third, we must safeguard the rights of women and girls online and combat cyber violence through more effective policies, sound legislative systems, and law enforcement. Today, many cyber violence cases are not investigated or prosecuted. It is critical to recognize that online violence is as destructive as offline violence, and to commit to eliminating cyber violence in all its forms through collective efforts. This regional consultation on the priority theme for the Commission on the Status of Women provides an opportunity for us to reflect on the digital challenges women and girls face, and to create concrete and actionable recommendations to guide the region. This meeting is being co-organized by 6 UN agencies, including ESCAP, UN Women, ITU, UNDP, UNICEF, and UNFPA. The UN family looks forward to working closely with all member states, civil society, the private sector, and all other stakeholders. Together, we can achieve gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls in the digital age. I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chai Chai. I would now like to introduce Ms. Sarah Nips, Regional Director ad interim, UN Women Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific, to deliver her remarks. Ms. Nips, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Excellencies, distinguished delegates and participants, good morning and good afternoon to everyone joining us here in the room and online. On behalf of UN Women, I have the pleasure of also welcoming all of you to this regional consultation. Let me begin by expressing my deep appreciation to your excellencies and distinguished delegates and participants present here in Bangkok and online for making time for this two-day regional consultation on the priority theme for the 67th session of the Commission on the Status of Women, i.e., innovation and technological change and education in the digital age for achieving gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls. I would also like to take this opportunity to warmly appreciate our collaboration with our co-hosts, ESCAP, represented by Chai Chai today, as well as the ITU, UNDP, UNFPA, and UNICEF. The priority theme for this year is particularly important for this region, which has played a key role in spearheading developments in the area of technological innovation. As we're all aware, digitalization and technological innovations have redefined how human beings can interact and communicate with one another, how we can access essential information, resources, and services, as well as our abilities to be able to contribute to and benefit from social, political, and economic life. Such innovations have demonstrated their ability to be game changers in our efforts to realize the 2030 Agenda and the SDGs, as was demonstrated in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. According to data published by the ITU, the number of users surged to reach 4.9 billion people between 2019 and 2021. However, this left some 2.9 billion people, 37% of the global population, still offline, demonstrating that the benefits of technological innovation do not necessarily translate into inclusive or gender transformative inclusive outcomes. While the digital revolution has immense potential to improve social and economic outcomes for women and girls, it also poses the risk of perpetuating existing patterns of discrimination and gender inequalities. The barriers to meaningful connectivity for women and girls are varied and context-specific. They include a lack of digital skills, the difficulty of affording internet access or digital tools and equipment, safety concerns, relevance of content, and lack of autonomy. These issues link back to the learning environment and contribute significantly to the representation or underrepresentation of women and girls in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM. The prevalence of gendered social norms and stereotypes continue to serve as barriers to women and girls in entering STEM education and therefore STEM careers. Gender inequalities in digital skills, in the use of internet and in the ICT sector all have implications for the opportunities for women and girls to define and influence innovation and technological change in the digital space. These factors also mean that they lag behind in skills needed to navigate the rapidly changing job market. Indeed, it is estimated that by 2030, around 40 to 160 million women, 7 to 24% of women who are currently employed, may need to transition across different occupations because of the shifts in labour demand that will come from the expected process of automation. So digital skills and competencies have moved from being optional to essential. making this year's CSW theme especially relevant and timely. As Chai Chai already highlighted, technology has also been used as a tool for perpetuating violence, for surveillance and censorship, and to propagate gender disinformation and harmful social narratives. Those at heightened risk of online and ICT-facilitated violence include young women and girls, Indigenous women, women with disabilities, and women whose professions or activism require them to be more visible online, including women journalists, politicians, women's rights activists, and women human rights defenders. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, and participants, there is now an urgent need to work together across different sectors of society, including civil society, UN, and private sector partners, to ensure that technological innovations and advances are conceptualized and designed to contribute to transforming social norms and to amplifying the voices of women and girls in all aspects of life, so that the benefits of digitalization benefit all equally and contribute to achieving the SDGs. I would like to conclude here by thanking you all again for your kind attention and by urging all of us to take this convening as an opportunity to contribute to shaping a global normative framework on gender equality, technology and innovation, one that advances a human-centered approach to digitalization with feminist principles of inclusion, intersectionality and systemic change at the core. We hope this conversation will inform subsequent intergovernmental processes on the development of the Global Digital Compact as part of the UN Secretary-General's Our Common Agenda at the Summit of the Future that is planned for September 2024. Together with our UN partners present here today, UN Women stands ready to support you all however we can in this endeavour. Thank you once again for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Nibbs, for your insightful remarks. I now have the pleasure of inviting Ms. Vileni Remengeso to deliver opening remarks on behalf of the participants of the Asia-Pacific CSW67 CSO Forum, which concluded yesterday. Ms. Remengeso, I understand our online participants are still having trouble hearing, so if you could speak as loud as possible, that would be appreciated. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jess. Your Excellencies, distinguished speakers, honorable members and delegates, colleagues, and my fellow sisters and brothers present here today. It is a privilege to be invited to speak to this consultation prior to CSW67 and to represent and amplify the voices of women's rights organizations, feminist and civil society organizations across the Asia-Pacific region. Digital revolution is claimed to have allowed social, political, and economic prosperity of the global community, yet Global South faces a myriad of challenges in relation to equality and inclusion in digital transformation, privacy, and autonomy over the management and utilization of digital data, and accountability and transparency of actors who are driving and controlling the digital revolution. Structural and historical inequalities of power, wealth, and resources between men and women, between rich and poor, and between countries are consolidated in this technology-driven digital era. Technology, innovation, and digitalization cannot be a solution or even a tool to advance women's human rights and gender equality and development justice unless it is grounded in the realities and aspirations of women and girls in all their diversity. As a woman with disability, I did not have the opportunity to define what kind of technology, innovation, or even understand that digitalization would help in advancing human rights, fundamental freedoms, and development of myself or my communities. What I learned from the Civil Society Forum is that it is a shared reality among women and girls across Asia and the Pacific. The critical question remains, who defines technology, innovation, and digitalization, and for whom and for what? It certainly was not for us, by us, or with us. The conversations in the CSO Forum address all the thematic areas of the regional consultation, but let me prioritize the issues that need your particular attention. These issues are the realities of women and girls in our region, but not appropriately addressed in the current discourse of the CSW67. First, we note with great concern that there is a rise of oppressive cyber criminalization, regulations, and laws that intrinsically encroach on civil liberties, including freedoms of expression and opinion. Military technology and surveillance are used to create conflicts, sustain power structures, attack women human rights defenders, and undermine democratic participation and people's sovereign power. Oppressive regulations are also being introduced in some countries in the region to police and repress the sexual expression of women and queer people, violating their right to bodily autonomy and agency. Such a repressive regime has historically failed to curb perceived and imagined threats, but instead has constrained civil freedoms and rights online and offline. The imposition of excessive imprisonment and fines for online behavior and speech has also led to self-censorship among women and girls and LGBTIQ people and other marginalized communities, further shrinking civic space and democratic participation. Punitive responses disproportionately impact the structurally silenced. Second, we must examine the consequences of the digital transformation on human rights and the climate crisis. If the internet was a country, it would be the sixth biggest electricity consumer on the planet. Production of cell phones and computers comes with its own environmental footprint across the life cycle, including extraction of rare minerals and processing them for use in these devices. Similarly, the increasing level of green energy technologies that power digital technologies also have supply chains based on extensive use of metals and rare earth minerals. All these extractions are associated with land, water, and resource grabbing with impunity at the cost of people's life and livelihoods. The environmental footprint of the infrastructure for digital transformation poses serious threats to our planet and future generations, yet policy conversations on these issues and challenges remain missing in political corridors. We urge you to consider the following recommendations. Take into account individual security and human rights in the policy-making discourses around cybersecurity and recognize that cybersecurity and protection of human rights are mutually complementary, interlinked, and interdependent. Decriminalize and protect the act of resistance and organize for women's human rights, gender equality, and development justice. Instead, recognize the important role and contribution of women human rights defenders, feminist movements, and civil society. Ensure women, LGBTIQ, and other marginalized groups are able to exercise their SRHR free from violence, coercion, and discrimination in both online and offline spaces. Transform macroeconomic policies, including trade rules, and seek an accountability mechanism to regulate large tech and digital companies. We urge you to address and respond to these priority issues that are acutely felt by women, girls, and their diverse communities in Asia and the Pacific. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Remengeso, for your inspiring remarks delivered on behalf of the region's civil society. Excellencies, distinguished guests, and participants, this concludes our opening session. We will now take a few moments to take a group photo. Online participants, please turn on your cameras and smile while our colleagues take a photo. In-person participants, please stand up and turn around to face the camera person who is in the interpreter's booth above us. I will announce a countdown from 3 shortly. He's in the booth just to the right of center if you can't see. Okay. Ready? Just a moment. Okay, are we ready? Everyone's still moving. Okay. 1, 2, oh, he's still directing people to move, sorry. Okay, and just smile, please. Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay, I will now invite our opening speakers to please have a seat in the audience. And for our session 1 speakers to please come to the rostrum or to turn their cameras on. Okay, we will now proceed for our first substantive session on ensuring meaningful connectivity to close the gender digital divide and promoting gender transformative technology design, development, and deployment. I now have the pleasure of introducing the moderator for our first session, Ms. Atsuko Okuda, Regional Director of ITU Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific, who is joining us online. Ms. Okuda, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you. Excellencies, distinguished representatives, welcome to the panel discussion of Session 1. I'm Atsuko Okuda, Regional Director of the ITU Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific, and I'm your moderator for this panel discussion. In this session, we will focus on the theme, ensuring meaningful connectivity to close the gender digital divide and promote gender transformative technology design, development, and deployment. Technology can help facilitate inclusion and empowerment of people who have limited access to socio-economic opportunities. Digital technology, in particular, can support and accelerate the achievement of each of the 17 SDGs, including the SDG 5. Digital connectivity can also strengthen efforts for gender equality and women's empowerment by expanding access to information, knowledge, essential public services, and opportunities for women's full participation in socio-economic life. However, various reports indicate the existence of gender digital divide. If not addressed, the divide poses a high risk of perpetuating already existing patterns of gender inequalities. The first session will set the stage and context for the following sessions of the CSW67. It will provide an overview of the digital trends and development and its impact on gender equality and women's empowerment in the region. The session will highlight initiatives from the region that have built on the opportunities presented by digital technology, incorporating a whole of society and a whole of government approach. Along with the opportunities, key challenges that perpetuate gender digital divide will also be discussed. We are very fortunate to have eminent panelists with us today. They will share with us their insights, expertise, and experience on this topic. We will begin with an overview presentation, followed by a panel discussion, and end with the plenary discussions with participants. Without further ado, I'm delighted to introduce Ms. Anju Mangal, Head of Asia-Pacific Global Digital Inclusion Partnership, who will deliver the presentation. Ms. Mangal works with government, private sector, and civil society to advance affordable access and meaningful connectivity across Asia and the Pacific. She's the chair of the Asia-Pacific Internet Governance Forum, IGF, co-chair of the Pacific IGF, and a special advisor to the Pacific chapter of the Internet Society. She was also a fellow of the Obama Foundation and the US State Department Digital Economy and Cybersecurity Program. She continues to amplify the voices of women in ICT, persons with disabilities, and rural and remote communities. She is passionate about connecting the unconnected, cyber safety for women and girls, and has been undertaking various initiatives on digital inclusion and internet governance. Ms. Mangal, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Atsuko-san. That was a really interesting bio, but thank you so much for providing that bio. It's also nice to see lots of women joining this event and our colleagues, our male colleagues who are also our role models in some extent to further the discussion on women in ICT. I would just like to suggest if we could just have the presentation, or do you want me to share my presentation? Great, thank you so much. I will be focusing on meaningful connectivity to close the gender digital divide. And I have to say that none of this would happen without the amazing women and girls, and also our role models in the governments, in the CSOs, also NGOs, and persons with disability, and our women and girls in marginalized communities that are all part of this discussion. So I do want to say that this is not just my presentation, it's a collective presentation. Next slide, please. So we all know, and Atsuko-san has already mentioned that, there's 2.7 billion people are still offline in this world. And you can see the proportion of people offline by ITU region, which the statistics clearly say that 36% is in Asia and Pacific. I'm going to focus on that for now. But I just wanted to say that when we think about 2.7 billion people offline in the world, it's not just about them being offline, but do they have meaningful connectivity, which means do they have access to 4G connectivity? Do they have access to smart devices or affordable smart devices? Do they have access to data on a daily basis? And do they have access, to connectivity that allows them to stream Netflix, videos, etc., even sitting in a remote place? So how do we make sure that it's meaningful to the people that are online as well? Next slide, please. So we understand from the, percentage-wise, we've done quite a lot of studies. ITU has done quite a lot of studies. The former Alliance for Affordable Internet, we've done quite a lot of studies as well. In Asia and the Pacific region, for example, the percentage of female internet users stood at 61%, while men users stood at 67%. So there is a regional divide, but this needs to be, reflected on the situation that, we can't just focus on just infrastructure, but it's also, divide on digital skills, knowledge, content, and also, access to devices, which is something that we really, really want to talk about. And you can see that from this slide, there's 83% of women in South Asia hold ownership of a mobile phone, but only 58% of them have internet access. So I think there is a big disparity, particularly in low and middle income countries, and to reduce that digital divide is something that most of us are working on. And I have to say that many of you are already sitting in the room that we continue to work with. I'm not going to say names, but you've been doing excellent work in trying to reduce the digital divide. But we also, acknowledge that there are role models, like male role models, that have been working to reduce the digital divide. So next slide, please. Right, so I'm just going to talk about some of the things that we have been doing, as in a collective way. We understand that there are barriers that prevent women and girls from accessing the internet, participating online, and I mentioned that including affordable devices. They don't have affordable devices. There's also data tariffs and taxation that we also need to think about. But one of the things that we continue to find difficulties or challenges in trying to deal with is the social norms and the cultural behavior in some of these settings when women are using internet, right? And it's also about, you know, when women are online, they need to be secured and safe. And so there is a privacy and security aspect to it. So continuing, you know, discussions around online safety, cyber safety is something that we are very passionate about doing. As you can see, you know, from this photo, we've been working across the region, Asia and the Pacific. These are all the champions on the ground working to address the digital divide. And I have to say that some of the work that they're doing in terms of the digital trend and the development is to make sure that they are part of the conversation when we are looking at doing gender responsive policies and strategies. And they are the ones who are actually going out and doing the research and data collection and trying to identify what the real issues are and what the gaps are. And based on this data, evidence-based data, they look at what is the actual cost of exclusion, you know, to reduce the digital gap, and how do then they make sure that that cost of exclusion is aligned to the budgets that are done by ministers or even governments. So there's quite a lot of work happening, like, for example, access to STEM education and skills. You know, I can give more examples, like, for example, women in digital in Bangladesh, they're doing quite a lot of work on, you know, digital skills, but focusing, like, this group of women are SMEs, entrepreneurs, and they have access to phones and they want to be able to sell their products online. So how do they make sure that, you know, they're doing it safely? So there's a lot of digital skills training happening. We continue to talk about creating a pathway for women in ICT. Many of these women, if you see in the photos, they are in leadership positions, but, you know, it's not easy for a woman, for a woman to climb the digital ladder in, say, a government, or in a digital, in the digital world. And I think, you know, we really need to emphasize that this is where we need to talk about how we engage them and how we push them into the ladder, climbing the ladder. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we've been looking at is, you know, meaningful connectivity, as I mentioned. How do we make sure that there's meaningful connectivity for women across Asia and the Pacific? So we've been, you know, these women have been doing a lot of work on developing gender policies, gender responsive policies, and this is across Asia and the Pacific. But the recent ones that were done recently was the one in PNG with digital ICT cluster, and I believe there is a representative from digital ICT cluster, Winifred, in the room. There's also from Samoa, the women, the Samoa Information Technology Association and the National University of Samoa. And again, we have women here that are representing Samoa, like Sarai. And also, you know, the women from Tonga, you know, they went through so much during the time when the earthquake and the volcanic eruption happened. But despite all that, they've managed to do a gender scorecard. So I think this makes a huge difference when we're working as a collective group. And then, you know, engaging these women in broadband policies was something that we've been tackling. So how do we then make this impact, this gender equality and women's empowerment? But this was done through policies. So we've been engaging a lot of these women in the conversation, in having those conversations with high-level delegates. Next slide, please. We're also looking at, you know, developing digital gender strategies. So the women in Pakistan, for example, the Pakistan Telecommunications Association, they made a big commitment to make sure that they produce the digital gender strategy in Pakistan. And they've been working with UNESCO in developing the strategy, but also doing quite a lot of stakeholder consultations in the rural and remote communities. So you can see that, again, there are quite a lot of photos on here. And again, I would like to emphasize that most of these women are doing an incredible job. And there are, what we really need is more incentives to ensure that they access, you know, digital services in rural and remote communities. And persons with disability, women in disability in particular, have access to accessible technology, assistive technology, and affordable assistive technology. And I also want to emphasize that there's quite a lot of work happening, cross-regional mentoring and coaching. So we've had some interesting case studies and also some projects for girls in particular, tech girls in the Pacific. So they've been engaged in discussions with universities in the US. They've been engaged in digital hackathon, etc. So how do we then bring the digital capabilities at a very young level, so that at that point where they reach at a point that I am, they have climbed the digital ladder, leadership ladder, but also they are at that point where they can also advocate for others who don't have access to internet and smartphone and devices. We need to make small steps. So I'm not going to take too much time and discussing everything, because I know we are running out of time, Ms. Atsuko-san. But one of the things that I wanted to point is that we continue to ask governments to reduce the tax on smartphones and devices. If you really want meaningful connectivity for everyone, including persons with disability and women with disabilities and marginalized like transgender groups, we need to think about taxation. And I think this is one of the things I really want to push from a broadband policy perspective, and also setting budgets that are specifically fund and prioritizes women and girls in digital digital tech, And one other thing is that we can do various things in very small steps. For example, encouraging more women to be part of the panels, because I see a lot of men in panel discussions. I want to be able to make sure that we plug in the women to be able to discuss at the same level. And also, conversations, when we are having conversations, include the communities from the rural and remote communities, rural places, and also the women in disability that can be part of this conversation and take it to another level. I'm just going to leave it at that, Atsuko-san. I know that we have so much to discuss, but I will be looking forward to question and answers later. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anju, for setting the scene and framing our discussion for this session. Your intervention pointed to the key challenges and opportunities emanating from data and actual initiatives, and shared with us what needs to be done. We now begin our panel discussion, and I will introduce each of our three panelists before asking them 2 rounds of questions. Panelists will have 5 to 6 minutes to answer the first set of questions and 2 to 3 minutes to respond to the second. Our first panelist is Mr. John Jack, Deputy Chief Information Officer, OGICO, Government of Vanuatu. Mr. Jack joined the Office of the Government Chief Information Officer in 2014 as Business and International Relations Officer. In 2017, he was appointed as the Deputy Chief Information Officer responsible for the technical cooperations and operations of the government broadband network. In 2018, he published an article, E-Government in Vanuatu, a whole-of-government approach, with the Asia-Pacific Journal of Public Administration. In 2019, Mr. Jack took over the portfolio of ICT sector development. In this capacity, he has been responsible for programs which includes ICT policy development, e-government, cybersecurity, and international affairs. Mr. Jack holds a master's degree in information technology and systems from the University of Canberra, Australia. Mr. Jack, can you describe how the government of Vanuatu has adopted an integrated digital and whole-of-government approach? The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Atsugu-san. Wow, that was a very detailed introduction. Thank you so much for that one. Firstly, thank you for having me and Vanuatu in this panel, but more importantly, participating in this Asia-Pacific Regional Consultation on the 67th session, the Commission on the Status of Women. Thank you, Anju, for a insightful presentation. I've learned a lot. There's a lot of figures there as well, which is encouraging, but as well as give us pressure on what we need to do. In regards to the question on describing what Vanuatu, the government of Vanuatu has adopted in terms of digital and the all of government approach, I have to stress that it was a challenge for Vanuatu right from the beginning. It was challenging in the sense that there was ICT was new in Vanuatu, but then we had this a very clear strategy, which is the National Sustainable Development Plan, which is a contextualized version of the Sustainable Development, the UN Sustainable Development Plan. And in Vanuatu's plan, implementation of a gender-responsive planning and budgeting process is one of the key areas that the government has focused on it, as well as prevent and to eliminate all forms of violence and discrimination against women. So those are some of the foundational areas that pushes us to, in terms of ICT and digital connectivity. We look at increasing the use and access of information and communication technologies, including online government services to all citizens of Vanuatu. That is well captured in the universal access policy for the government, which we talk about population coverage. We target 90% of the population coverage, either be, well, it covers all the entire archipelago of Vanuatu. The key indicator in terms of measuring the performance of our National Sustainable Development Plan in regards to pillar on the economic policy is everyone must have access to broadband connectivity by 2030. Now it's challenging. It's very challenging knowing that the difference of having just connectivity and having a meaningful connectivity. On that note, the government has worked very closely with our telecom operators and consultation with other stakeholders within the community to make sure that the prices of the prices of mobile handsets is reduced in terms of the duty rate that is charged on the mobile handsets. And also we work very closely with the regulator to make sure that the types of equipment that are on the market in Vanuatu are legitimate equipments and they can be accessible and can be usable by all members of the community. That means all women and girls, including our other vulnerable groups like our disabled people with special needs. So that is, I would say, in a nutshell, that is what we are working on in terms of making sure that all our services, online services, have capability for those with disability as well, and that we are working on. And there's an initiative that has come up recently was to address digital literacy as well for citizens. And we, of course, digital literacy is another thing, and one thing apart from the literacy itself. That's an area that we are working closely with the Ministry of Education to make sure that everyone that attends an educational institution, including those in our technical and vocational training, they will all have access to ICT equipments as well as to help them in terms of all the educational journey and academic journeys. So if I may stop there for now, but welcome any questions, further questions.
Thank you, John. for sharing with us the initiatives and insights of the government of Vanuatu. Our second panelist is Ms. Aisha Humera Chowdhury, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Information Technology and Telecommunication, Pakistan. During her 28 years of service, Ms. Chowdhury has been appointed to various key positions in the federal government, including the Ministry of Commerce, covering trade matters with the United States, European Union, Central Asia, Africa, and Middle East. She played an instrumental role in the implementation of e-commerce policy of Pakistan. She joined the Ministry of Information Technology and Telecommunication in April 2022 as Additional Secretary. Ms. Chowdhury holds degrees of Executive Masters from Graduate Institute, Geneva, and Harvard University, and Master's degree on Development Management from London School of Economics. Ms. Chowdhury, can you tell us about Pakistan's initiatives based on the whole of government, multi-stakeholder approach, such as the Digital Inclusion Week? Please describe how women were reached out and what roles they played in these initiatives. Ms. Chowdhury, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to congratulate all organizations of UN and especially ITU for organizing CSW67. It's a privilege for me to be part of this learned August panel. It's an opportunity for me to learn from other participants and the interventions and policies that they have introduced in their countries. So just to share Pakistan's experience, the Digital Inclusion Week, which was organized last year in December, was a very good opportunity for us to connect with women and all the stakeholders. This event included a lot of activities, including ICT, girls' education, and then cyber cafe for all and child online protection. It was not just a one-week event, but the awareness sessions spread on the whole of month, and social media campaign was developed to increase awareness. To ensure that women are using technology, government has come up with some initiatives, and we are also trying to mainstream women. We have an initiative called Digital Pakistan. So under that initiative, we are doing several interventions to ensure that public policy work is integrated and more technology is introduced in that. And we are working on developing data exchange layers. So that is an intervention which will have a huge impact on public policy. So we are ensuring that this exercise has gender disaggregated data, and the whole data exchange layers are developed in such a way that it leads to gender-friendly public policies. And secondly, we are using technology to make our social safety programs much more targeted. We are using fintech to ensure inclusion, financial inclusion of women, and especially those who are making use of these social safety networks. So these are some of the initiatives which are more broad-based and including all the stakeholders. But to talk specifically of that week that we celebrated in collaboration with ITU, that was a great opportunity to connect with women working in the remote areas. As part of that celebration, we gave awards to some of the women entrepreneurs who were working as freelancers and earning a lot of money online for their families and raising their children and living in northern areas of Pakistan, where we have made sure through Universal Service Fund, which is created through the contribution of telecommunication sector, that connectivity is ensured for women living in the remote and rural areas. So some of those were invited in that week and they were given awards. And secondly, we also engaged some of the women who, women-owned startups in that week to promote entrepreneurship among women. And although we want 50% of the startups in all our national incubation centers, but right now at least 36% of all the businesses in our incubation centers are owned by women, which I think is a promising number, keeping in view the socioeconomic challenges, and as the participant highlighted in the presentation, that one of the challenges, social challenges, are still hindering women in actively participating in the digital world. So we are addressing those aspects as well, and trying to make cyberspace more safe for women.
Thank you, Ms. Chaudhry, for sharing with us important initiatives of the government of Pakistan and exciting developments. We look forward to hearing from you more later in this session. Our third panelist is Dr. Genius Umar, Mayor of Pariaman City, West Sumatra, Indonesia. Dr. Umar has been mayor since 2018. During his tenure, Pariaman City was awarded by the Indonesian Ministry of Commerce as the fastest city to accelerate digitalization and was recognized as the first city to receive women and children-friendly status. Prior to his current appointment, he began his career as a staff member at the Padang Pariaman Regency Village Community Empowerment Office in 1994. He was the Vice Chairman, Secretary Section, and the head of the Interagency Cooperation Committee of Parliament Section at the General Secretary of Foreign Relations in the Parliament of Indonesia. Dr. Umar earned the government scholarship for the doctoral program from the Bogor Agricultural Institute in 2007 and government scholarship for Magister Public Administrative Program from University Gajah Mada in 2001. Dr. Umar, what are some of the digital design and architecture of your city's services or programs that promote or support gender equality and women's empowerment? Dr. Umar, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much for Mr. Atsuko Ukudo. I'm very appreciative for this invitation from CSW and also UNDP, all organizations who invite us. It is a proud for us, for my city also. I will talk about Pariaman, smart city for tourism, trade, and service, and women empowerment based on religion and culture, and also how we transforming and developing Pariaman city for women and men. So Indonesian Ministry of Communication have the program Movement of 100 Smart City, and one of the city is Pariaman. So the formal goal is to solve urbanization problem, to face the outlook that 83% of Indonesian people will live in cities in 2045. So that Pariaman we talk about this one. We have many smart city is a part. I mean, next slide. Next slides. Yeah. Okay. Parliament ongoing to smart city. We are right now. City for tourism, trade, service, both based on religion and culture. On this moment, we have grow our economic. I think based on because of women work very hard. We have 4 districts, 6 islands, and then more than 100,000 people. So we have so many smart city here, smart government, smart infrastructure, smart economy, smart living, smart people, and also smart environment. So our parliament got national award as best government agency performance in accountability system. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have a gender empowerment, especially based on religion and Minangkabau culture. Minangkabau is our culture. Parliament City have a strong policy on women empowerment based on Minangkabau culture, which is called matriarchat. That very different with other system in Indonesia, patriarchat. We are matriarchat. The Minangkabau culture system is an established social system that giving prominent roles to women in public ceremony. Minang women uphold other custom in which women and men share power and control based on principle in their interdependence and mutual responsibility. Unfortunately, women in Parliament still suffer in economic and experience in violence. But in by our culture, women have ownership on land and property, but men have a right to manage this land and property. It is mutual responsibility. So that's why women have good position in Parliament City because of our culture. So that Parliament City committed to improve women quality life with digitalization application based service for okay. We have some application like we call the City Payuang. So the all problem of the woman can access directly, especially in economic, how the woman we grow up the skill of that to do some economic resources and also skill to make a business in the field of especially what is in our city. That we have digital skill, example digital workshop on smart enterprise collaboration with the marketplace of Indonesia like Tokopedia, Bukalapak, and etc. Mutual agreement between Parliament government with the e-commerce. So e-commerce website parliamentmall.com. So the all women in Parliament have access to do that and increase their economic. So women enterprise in Parliament is 94%. And men enterprise is 36%. I thought so that small enterprise in Parliament is dominated by the women. So women cooperative, women enterprise. We also assist by the Central Bank of Indonesia in digital marketing. That call we have some training controlled by Bank Indonesia. So next slide, please. Okay, this is City Payung, another system, integrated health system to protect women and children. On this City Payung system, all women can write down exactly what has happened about health system and also what happened to the women also. And then our as government service will doing some policy and action to solve any problem with the woman. So the web-based application to integrate all statistic, social, and medical data of women make government easier to give social support and health service for the woman based on their need. Okay, Next slide, please. This is some picture for you also. So this Sartika, integrated service for women and children experienced in violence. This web-based application to integrate all service for gender-based violence survivors such as counseling, legal assistance, the medical support from hospital, best service center, and Sadikin Hospital with the support of Women Death Policy. This one belong to our hospital to serve all women problem. Okay, next slide, please. So we also have some group like the place where the women can meet together, can solve problem together, and happier together. So this special, I mean, this is our local government organization who have service for the women. This is our regulation. So we support by the Ministry of Women Empower from Jakarta, who support to build this one also. And also some NGO will support this organization also. So all together, but like government sector, private sector, and also social people also, and also religion sector also, they work together to help people in Parliament. So the next slide, please. This is in Indonesia. We have a pre-work card. Is this the program belong to central government? So we work together with the central government to have some that we call pre-work card, and they have capacity building for the women in Parliament, and then they look for the work, then and also they work themselves to make a small enterprise in Parliament also that have economic. Even in COVID disaster last time, we never our economic negative. So we just still positive action because all women active to doing some economic action. That's all from me. Thank you very much. I appreciate for this invitation. Thank you very much. Good morning.
Thank you, Dr. Umar, by providing experience and initiatives from the local administration perspectives, and that was very enriching. Now, I'm very sorry to inform the panelists as well as the participants that we are running out of time, but I am very impressed by the depth and the width of the interventions and how rich your interventions have been. So I would like to move on to the second round of questions. And if the panelists can answer in 2 minutes, I would really appreciate it. Mr. Jack, with connectivity becoming ever more crucial to provide a wide range of digital services, what are the initiatives that you are implementing at community level? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Isatsuku. Yes, there are several initiatives that we are taking, we are actually implementing, and one of which at the ITU level we are aware of it is the Smart Island. So the concept of the Smart Island is to empower members of the communities with one, information, critical, and we all know the power of information. Once people have the information, they can do a lot of things. And so with empowering members of the communities with information, it enables them to be innovative in terms of creating new opportunities. Especially, we know women, and in our culture where women, a lot of women stay back at home. So we cannot fight against the culture, but we provide them that we empower them. We empower them by providing them accessibility to information so that they can come up with new initiatives. And especially economic activities to help them to continue to participate in the economy. Digital literacy is something that we find out from the Smart Island that we need to continue to train people, and we continue to teach, especially women, in terms of using all these digital devices and connect. So I'll share you one clear example. We started to train the women especially to use YouTube, and they come up with all these different products which they start producing them, and they learn a lot from YouTube videos from Philippines, from Indonesia, and so we see the power of connectivity first of all, but more importantly providing them access to meaningful connectivity so that they can themselves go online, have access to information, and be able to be innovate. Secondly, we encourage students, youth, our youth especially, and especially girls. So we have this group called the Smart Sisters, where we train them. They do all the technical stuffs. And last year in December, around October, November, they participate in there was a competition in Geneva. So training girls to be able to do all the ICT stuff, it helps them as well in terms of having placements in the job market. We have a group also that we are working with them closely. It's called the Sisters Vanuatu, and those we work together with them to address cybersecurity issues, and they do a lot of awareness on our behalf to get the information across to especially the women and girls. And if you follow them on their Facebook page, they have a lot of videos which are about girls sharing photos and sharing all those other stuffs online using social media. So those are some of the initiatives that we are working on. There are a lot of initiatives we're working on as well. But conscious of time, I will share that for now. But I'm happy to share more in terms of other initiatives that we have, and especially working with girls. But I must say as well that our cybersecurity team is working with the communities as well. We have a FAN IGF office in Vanuatu where they are going out to the community and talking especially to students, but most importantly targeting girls, which we find them we find it challenging for us in Vanuatu based on our culture, where women, girls to stay back at home. And we want to encourage them and empower them so that they can come out and shine. And we've seen it happening already in the schools, where one of our colleges in Vanuatu, which is one of our top colleges in Vanuatu, we have majority of the students that are very successful in the exams of last year. Majority of them are students. So majority of them are females. That is a very big plus on the initiatives that we're working on.
Thank you, Mr. Jack. These are all very important initiatives, and please feel free to share the resources in the chat. Now, Ms. Chaudhry, can you share with us your experience in taking digitalization to the doorsteps of rural communities and empower women in particular? The floor is yours.
Thank you. In 2021, government launched a Smart Village Pakistan project together with ITU and Huawei. Through this project, government aimed at transformation of villages into smart villages to bring about a positive change in quality of life among people and accelerate their achievement of inclusive development, sustainable development. It also aims to digitally transform remote and rural communities by connecting them and empowering the citizens with better access to a range of digital services that can meaningfully improve their well-being and livelihood, in accordance with the Digital Pakistan initiative. In the first phase of the project, 2 to 3 digital services will be launched in 3-4 villages in the top priority areas identified by the community itself, with the whole of government and whole of society approach in mind, backed by a multi-partnership strategy. More digital services will be added so that the connectivity and platform developed through the programs can be used by the rural communities as well as various socioeconomic sectors, such as education, health, agriculture, and business. To give you a few examples that how smart villages will empower women in rural areas, 2 digital services, health and education, are currently piloted in our pilot smart village in Gokina. All of them predominantly identified by the women of the community in a gender-sensitive need assessment exercise, as well as women as the key beneficiaries. Along with these digital skills, targeting entrepreneurship is also being rolled out soon. So under e-education, online classes of science subjects are offered to girls in a smart classroom, backed by a smart LED and Wi-Fi, whereby girls were previously deprived of these courses. It will enable them in bringing and make them more competitive and at par with students in urban areas. Similarly, in e-health, a telemedicine school is introduced to fill the gap and improve access to healthcare for women And to empower the community, women from the community is trained as a coordinator of the clinic, who is now also getting training of nursing for sustainability purposes. Similarly, digital skills and entrepreneurship is promoted, and capacity building programs are developed, focusing on enhancing the digital skills of the community as a whole. Specifically designed a digital skill program in under planning for the female teachers. These are being planned for the female teachers, schoolgirls, as well as potential women entrepreneurs in the villages. So this is just one initiative which has started in collaboration with ITU and Huawei. There are several other initiatives which are planned to take technology to the communities and to the rural areas.
Thank you, Ms. Chaudhry. I hope that more and more girls and young women can participate and benefit from these exciting initiatives. Now, Dr. Umar, how are you addressing gender gaps, ensuring women are not left behind to access connectivity and acquire digital skills? Dr.
Okay,
Umar, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. So on our social culture, we are matriarchat. So our system of social based on women. So that's why land ownership is belong to the woman, but the management of the land is belong to the men of the clan or the family. And then, so in this smart system of smart city, all land ownership must be certificates so that their certificate can be accessed to the bank. So the woman can get the money and then they have capital to do some business work. So that's why they have empower for this one. So what is the role of the smart city? So the system of that we call it before, that city payung, they can have some information for the government. So we need to the certificate of land. So that's why, so our people, we work for hard to give them certificate of the land and the access to the bank. They get money and then they have capital to start to begin to doing some business work. I mean, business like this, to have a small enterprise or medium enterprise. And then what the role of the woman? The man is the chief executive officer, a manager on this company that's like that's one. So that make the woman will be equal, and because of a culture, and via government support him in the system of the smart city, and also by the administration. And also second one, how they do that, we have to do capacity building. We work together with the central government also that we call Kartu Prakerja, free work card, so they can doing some training, what they like to do, training, what they want of the women. Maybe like marketing, digital marketing, maybe some business, maybe some like a coffee shop, how to make it. They will also get. So that's why it's about 8,000 participants. Yeah, and 50% is women. So we are partnered also with Bank Indonesia, Central Bank of Indonesia. We have some program to doing this capacity building also. They increase the capacity, increase the skill of the women to doing some business also. When they're doing business, we have a stronger, I mean, equality with the women. So our government also have some program that we call Saga Saja. This is scholarship for all poor people to get to the university, especially skill-based university like Polytechnic. So 50% of this is the student is I mean not 50%, 60% of the student is as a woman. After they're going to school, this Polytechnic, they work, and the economic of all family will be increased also. This is a system that we make here in Parliament.
Thank you, Dr. Umar. These are all very important initiatives. And I'm so sorry that we had perhaps more insights and experience to exchange, but the time is running out or already ran out. So I would like to close this part of the first session, and I would like to thank all the panelists, and including, of course, Andrew, who set the tone and the scene at the beginning of the discussion. And I would like the best and exciting discussions ahead in the plenary discussion afterwards. So thank you very much, everyone, for your attention, and looking forward to the successful outcomes of this meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Okuda, and all of our panelists for insightful comments, and Ms. Okuda for your excellent moderation. We will now take a short break before returning for our session 1 moderated discussions, and we're going to return at 11:20, so 5 minutes later than the program states. Coffee and tea are available in front of the conference room for our in-person participants. Thank you, everyone. Excellencies, distinguished guests, and participants, welcome back. We will now commence our session 1 plenary discussions. I now have the pleasure of introducing our moderator for the plenary discussion, Ms. Ko Miawi, Asia-Pacific Gender Advisor and Gender Team Leader for UNDP Asia-Pacific Regional Office. Ms. Miawi, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And welcome back, everyone, from the break. And also, probably you're enjoying the moment of meeting each other in person after quite some time. It was very nice to meet some old friends and colleagues as well. And as I introduced, I am Ko Miawi, Asia-Pacific Gender Team Lead and Advisor for UNDP, with the UNDP Bangkok Regional Hub based in Bangkok. I will be moderating for this part of the session 1. Following our panel discussion just before the break, we will now begin the plenary discussion, which will run for 45 minutes. May I please remind our participants that the outcome of this consultation will be a set of recommendations on areas to accelerated action in line with the priority theme for CSW67. The set of recommendations will be informed by the 4 substantive sessions as introduced earlier in the opening session, and that includes this session. In the plenary discussions, government representatives are invited to share their experiences and practices. This will be followed by perspectives from other stakeholders. As we would like to hear from as many stakeholders as possible, we ask that all interventions please be kept to no more than 2 minutes. We have a timer to assist us with the time keeping. You saw that timer already on the screen. In the guidance note for participants that was circulated in advance of this meeting, we invited expressions of interest to intervene. Those who have submitted expressions in advance will be given the floor first. For those joining online, you may also request the floor using the chat box, listing the request to speak together with your full name and country or organization. Raising your hand in Zoom will not register your request to speak. Those joining in person may raise the placard or raise their hands to request the floor. Please note that we will only accept 1 intervention per country under each agenda item, and that interventions will be invited by government representatives first. Other stakeholders who have not intervened under other sessions will be prioritized above those who have previously had the opportunity to speak. As we are limited on time, we may not be able to call on all participants who wish to speak during this session. Please remember you may request the floor in the following sessions and during the recommendation sessions, which will take place tomorrow afternoon. I now open the floor for government representatives. First, I'd like to invite the Secretary of State for Equality and Inclusion from Timor-Leste, Ms. Maria Filomena Babu Martins, National Director of Gender Policy and Inclusion. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much to the moderator. Good morning to all of us. From Timor-Leste, regarding to this theme, ensuring meaningful connectivity to close the gender digital divide and promoting gender transformative technology design, development, and deployment. Timor-Leste, through the Secretary of State for Equality and Inclusion, we have two main programs. The first is gender equality and social inclusion, and the second is good governance and institutional building. So I go directly to the sub-program Women and Economic. To improve the economic of women in rural areas, the government, through Secretary of State for Equality and Inclusion, has provided grants to women's groups to increase their household economic income. From 2019 to 2022, SEI has provided public funds transfer using a rotation mechanism to a total of the 317 women's group in 13 municipalities. This program has benefited 2,458 people. According to sex disaggregated data, we have female 1,931 and male 528. This program aims to minimize the dependency of women on their partners so that the number of violence against women and girls is reduced and other vulnerable component can be reduced. The gender digital divide is a challenge for all of us in Timor-Leste. The gap is very clear, especially at the level of mobile phone use. Women and girls who live in rural area don't use Android mobile phones, and they don't even know how to use Android phone. In rural areas, also only few number of women, especially students and young girls, are use mobile phone, but only to access to the media, social or Facebook. Most of users are in Dili, in the capital of Timor-Leste, and most are students, office workers, and women entrepreneurs who mostly of the time use this facility in searching, mailing, and promoting their product through individual online business. Now I offer the opportunity to my colleague from Minister of Transport and Telecommunication to talk a little bit about ICT. Thank you.
Please keep your intervention to 2 minutes. The next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Georgina Garcia on behalf of the Secretary of State for Equality and Inclusion, but I come from the Ministry of Transport and Communication. As we all know that information and technology are changed very dramatically, and we can feel the big difference during the pandemic, where everything is done through online. This is where we acknowledge that ICT plays an important role in our daily lives. In regards to this session, Ministry of Transport and Communication also have a big commitment to connect the unconnected, to also empower rural women on how to use technology through mobile phones to transform the traditional market into a digital market by using social media platforms like Facebook and also WhatsApp. This program we already performed in 3 different municipalities with the participation from the 75 groups, 75 people from 25 groups. So basically, we are teaching them how to use mobile phones on a safe way to transform their local market, the way how they sell in their product, like agriculture or other necessary product, into a digital market transformation to a digitalization. So the aim of this program is that we want all women to have access to technology, to move forward, and not to leave no one behind. That's the aim. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now I'd like to invite the next speaker from Indonesia, Ramura Edward Sitros. Dr. Ramura, Head of Evaluation, Research and Dissemination from the Project Management Office of Kartu Prakarja under the Indonesian Coordinating Ministry for Economic Affairs. Dr. Ramura, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, distinguished panelists, moderator, and colleagues. With regard to the topics of this first session today on ensuring meaningful connectivity to close the gender digital divide, I would like to add to our discussion by highlighting one of the best practice of digital transformation for public service in Indonesia, Kartu Prakerja, which is a skill development program from the government of Indonesia, has pioneered digital transformation to support all, including women. Through public-private partnership, Kartu Prakerja has successfully delivered more than 1,000 online training courses to 16.4 million people in all 514 districts and cities in Indonesia in less than 3 years. The Kartu Prakerja ecosystem consists of local and national government, e-marketplaces, universities, and many others. The cloud technology allowed the program to deliver inclusively in scale, speed, and transparency. More than 8.3 million beneficiaries of the program are female. It is equivalent to 51% of total beneficiaries from 2020 to 2022. The Kartu Prakerja program does work. Evaluation survey indicates that 22% of female who were previously unemployed have worked after the program. We also have scientific evidence from independent research institutions such as JPAL Southeast Asia and Presisi Indonesia. We are glad that they show 18% increase in probability of starting a new job, 33% increase in female monthly income of our beneficiaries. World Bank study on Kartu Prakerja government to person also show its side impact of accelerating financial inclusion, where 58% of beneficiaries are first-time e-money bank account user and 96% of beneficiaries are satisfied with Kartu Prakerja cashless disbursement. With respect to our effort to share this best practice of Kartu Prakerja to the international community, Government of Indonesia through PMO, in collaboration with UN Women and UNESCO Institute of Lifelong Learning, will hold 61st session of the Commission for Social Development, or CSW61 webinar in this February 10th under the title, Bringing 16.4 million people closer to productive employment and decent work with digital technology. We are inviting everyone here to join policymakers, experts, and practitioners and learn more about this digital transformation initiative. For more information, please allow me to contact each of you directly after this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. May I invite government representatives from other countries to make a request to speak? Yes, I recognize China.
Thank you, moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's my pleasure to attend the Asia-Pacific Regional Consultation on the 67th session of the Convention on the Status of Women. I wish this consultation meeting success. There's a Chinese saying that women hold up half the sky. China attaches great importance to the cause of women and gender equality, with 4 outlines of women's development in China being successively formulated and implemented. Last year, the Fundamental National Policy of Gender Equality once again was written into the report of the 28th National Congress of the CPC, which provides an important political guarantee for optimizing women's development, environment, and safeguarding their equal rights and interests. China is firmly opposed to violence against women. A comprehensive legal system has been established to protect. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. China is firmly opposed to violence against women. A comprehensive legal system has been established to protect women's rights and interests. We have cracked down on all kinds of criminal activities that may infringe on women's rights, effectively safeguarding women's lives and physical health. The level of education for Chinese women has risen significantly. We closed the gender gap in compulsory education and increased the proportion of female students enrolled in undergraduate and tertiary education to over 50%. This has laid an important foundation for promoting the status and social participation of women. The number of Chinese women in employment has increased dramatically, accounting for more than 40% of the country's workforce. With the development of digital economy in China, new industries like digital trade, e-commerce, and live streaming have emerged, creating 57 million female jobs and protecting more equal, full, and high-quality employment for women. In China, women make up almost half of the workers in the area of science and technology innovation, accounting for 48.5%, much higher than the global rate of 33%. A lot of excellent outcomes have been achieved by Chinese women in the area of the internet, physics, medicine, mathematics, and many other science and technology fields. Ladies and gentlemen, the world is now entering a new period of turbulence and transformation, and the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is facing challenges. We need to contribute more efforts to build a world where women are not discriminated against and form a society with inclusive development. First, we should focus on development. Important infrastructure such as electricity and the internet need to be developed, which forms the hardware foundation for women to participate in the digital age. At the same time, we need to enhance education and training to improve women's soft power of employment and economic participation. Second, we should strengthen cooperation and integrate women's empowerment into the overall framework of international development cooperation. The flow of talents, funds, and technology should be promoted to developing countries and to areas contributing to women's development. Third, we should support the United Nations to play a greater role. UN organizations such as UN Women, UNDP, and UNESCAP provide platforms for multi-stakeholders to promote experience sharing and policy exchange. We could make good use of them to carry out cooperation projects in the field of gender equality and women's empowerment in order to implement the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Ladies and gentlemen, China has always been an advocate of gender equality and a promoter of international women's development. China is ready to work with all countries to implement the priority goals set in the Beijing Declaration and Platform forms for action, continuously injecting new momentum into the development of the global women's cause. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other speakers from government? Yes, Bangladesh, please. You have the floor.
Dear moderator and dear colleagues.
Sorry. Sri Lanka first. Thank you.
Dear moderator and dear colleagues, good morning. Sri Lanka has taken numerous steps to promote gender transformative technology in terms of policies and action plans. I would like to share some statistics with regard to digital literacy in Sri Lanka. For male, it is 60.3%, and for female, it's 54%, 54.5%. So when considering the little children and the most older ones are omitted from here, I think this is a smart number percentage when comparing other countries. Having considering that, Sri Lanka, in order to address gender imbalances, we have drafted a new policy, women's policy. We didn't have such policy until now. Now we have named it as the Gender Equality and Women Empowerment Policy. Now we have finalized that drafting. The technical support was given by the UNFPA. The policy has submitted to the cabinet. We hopefully looking forward that cabinet will approve the said policy. The policy aims to ensure equal rights and opportunities for women in all spheres and structures. The government of Sri Lanka recognizes the need for commitment and bold action to accelerate progressive development of the country. The policy guide the transformative shift required to ensure equal representation of women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, while information and communication technology is an enabler to facilitate sharing of knowledge, economic development, and it is a sector where pre-existing social and gender divides exist in usage, access, availability, and infrastructure. Women and girls have less access to the internet, are less active in using internet compared to men, base knowledge and interaction, and have less access to ICT related education. It was understood that rapid developments in technology related fields have not adequately included women at decision making or professional level of employment. Moreover, Ministry of Women and Child Affairs and Social Empowerment has taken a number of steps in terms of action plans. For instance, we launched programs at divisional and district levels, which was supported by Information and Communication Technology Agency of Sri Lanka to empower women through IT. E-magazine were published in physical and online versions twice a year, aiming to improve IT knowledge and its applications for women. Then we were able to establish e-women market, e-Lanka women market, targeting introducing digital market platform to showcase and market the products of women entrepreneurs. Moreover, Ministry of Women and Child Affairs of Sri Lanka was able to establish an ICT resource pool in national level to train women entrepreneurs. In divisional level, those who are willing to sell their products through this e-market. National trainings for women entrepreneurs to promoting businesses through e-commerce and digital marketing were conducted with partnership of ESCAP. Those are the important initiatives that the ministry has taken to coverage for inclusive digital development and gender transformative innovations in Sri Lanka.
Thank you. Thank you. May I now invite a delegate from Bangladesh? And if I could ask you to speak closer to the microphone, we're having a slight technical problems with sound. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Am I audible? Dear moderators, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. As we know that the political manifesto of the government was Digital Bangladesh, which was declared in back 2008. And after that declaration, the government has taken initiative to digitalize all the services that they are providing through online. So nearly 14 years have passed since that. And recently, the government has now declared the Vision 2041. This is a vision to build a smart Bangladesh with smart citizens, smart economy, smart government, and smart society. However, to attain this vision, we understand that we need to address the gender digital divide. Bangladesh has, unlike many of the development countries, developed and developing countries, facing this digital gender divide, and women participation in terms of access to mobile, smartphone, and other internet services are still low compared to the male participants. The government has declared the National Women Development Policy and the National Science and Technology Policy in 2011. And these two policies have given special emphasis on participation of women in science and technology, promoting higher education for women at home and abroad, and to advise achieve equal access to technology, gender, digital training, and safe online. As we all know that Bangladesh is predominantly a rural economy, so bringing these rural women into the digitalization process is also very key challenge to the government. And a bundle of measures have been taken by the government to encourage women participation as entrepreneurs to set smart initiatives. The government has established 5,865 Union Digital Center. Union is the lowest administrative tier of the government, and in these centers, 50% of the service providers are women, which is actually encouraging the women to come up in the area with more pace and confidence. And from the Ministry of Women and Children Affairs, we have adopted a project which we call the Info Lady or the Toto Apa, the large project for women empowerment through digital literacy and provide services through information and communication technology. And under the project, there are 492 information centers. And in these centers, there are 2 ladies with high-speed internet and all other smartphone devices. And they go to the rural women and help them, the rural ladies, to access services to different public goods like NID subscription, birth registration, then connecting for the government's health system access to and so on. And they have till now supported 10.2 million rural women, and that has increased access to government services, connecting rural women with their family members living abroad, provide primary healthcare services, and also conduct different awareness programs on gender-based violence and early child marriage. As we have learned from the morning that during COVID pandemic, there has been a disruption in the normal routine life, and women, but in general, the whole society, particularly women, have suffered from income loss and everything. So from the government side, we have established an online web portal, which we call the lalshubuj.com. And this is a web portal where the info ladies directly connect these rural ladies to the online marketing process. And this is a online system where the rural women get the opportunity to sell their products, whatever they have got, their indigenous product throughout the country. So this has been a very good initiative from the government. And also we have got the e-Joita platform. Joita means victory women. And through this women network, with the women entrepreneurs are able to sell their products online. And regarding the gender-based violence initiative, because we know that whenever there is a technological expansion, there is new types of crime committed for the against the women. So there is a police cyber support women wing has been established to take care of this issue. And we have got a dedicated helpline 109, which is also contributing to provide services. This is a toll-free line, and whenever there is an issue of GBV-based GBV issue, they can call this number. So there are other initiatives we can continue keeping sharing later on.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate that 2 minutes are not long enough to share all the rich experiences and insights, but I also appreciate the efforts to keep your interventions to max 2 minutes. Thank you. I'm now moving to invite speakers from other organizations, other stakeholders. First calling on Ms. Elenita Dano, the Asian Director for the Action Group on Erosion, Technology and Concentration.
Thank you, Chair. To bridge the gender digital divide, it is imperative to address the root causes of the lack of access to digital technologies and the underpinning power and system inequalities. Meaningful connectivity will only be achieved if the ever-widening development divide between the North and South, between rural and urban population, and between men and women that are due to persistent social and cultural norms and patriarchal structures that allow for and perpetuate men's control over women's access to technology are addressed. Making digital devices affordable is meaningless to the 500 million people in Asia-Pacific who go hungry each day, have no access to basic health services, medicines, basic education, and social protection, and have no access to electricity. Digital transformation will not vanish structural problems. It is non-negotiable that improving the living conditions of those who are left behind, as the international community has committed in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, must remain a top priority of governments. Digital technology should not be taken as a given or as a default. A fundamental approach to close the gender divide in technology is to recognize, promote, and enable the capacities, innovations, and knowledge systems of women, especially in local and indigenous communities. Digitalization is just one of the many options that include technological, social, and structural solutions that should be provided to those impacted to appropriately address specific conditions. Top-down imposition of digital technologies from outside will only exacerbate existing inequalities and power imbalances. Meaningful connectivity should look into the physical and resource cost of digitalization. As we talk about connecting the unconnected, let us not lose sight that production of smart digital tools and building the required infrastructures require extraction of minerals and rare earths, which are not coincidentally mostly found in the lands and territories of local and indigenous communities. The land needed to house the servers, the massive amount of energy required to run these machines, and the immense amount of water needed to cool down servers to keep them running 24/7 involves indelible carbon footprints that would directly compete with food production as the world grapples with the impacts of the climate crisis. All these add to the multiple burdens that women face in their daily lives, which are barely talked about in the midst of obsession over digitalization as the solution to every problem. Lastly, CSOs around the region have offered models and lived experiences of working with women in promoting territorial markets, conservation of genetic resources, protecting the environment, and providing sustainable livelihoods, utilizing appropriate and accessible technologies and local and traditional knowledge systems that ensure local control over resources, knowledge, and data. Thank you for the opportunity to deliver this.
Thank you very much. And next, I'd like to call on Kavita Pahin, Program Coordinator and Operations from Body and Data Research, Nepal.
Hello. Thank you, Chair and Seva, everyone. I'm Kavita Bahing, representing Body and Data Nepal and Research. It is a pleasure to share my recommendations from South Asia, Asia-Pacific Civil Society Forum and Voice from Margin in a Global South. As the notion of development has been gearing towards digitizations, even grounded in internet and digital innovations, it's high time to recognize multi-layer implications and impact in Global South and beyond on fostering gender-digital divide and widening the missing gaps. Drawing attention to urgency and need of inclusive intersectional perspective and lens to margin to unpack the scaffolds of gender digital divide, accessibility, affordability, and sustainability of women, girls, and queer persons with disability, rural women, women belonging to ethnic and indigenous diversity, gender diverse community, class and sexuality, and other systematically marginalized group who are not able to meaningfully exercise and access the digital tools and products in digital transformation process. Further, lack of accessibility in digital technology is posing a huge barriers for inclusion of women and disabilities. Women with disability and community remained in margin in a digital innovations and transformation and should be recognized and addressed accordingly. Therefore, there is no alternative to accept existing patriarchal and systematic power dominance and social complexities and urgency to end gender digital divide for the sustainable, just, and inclusive tech and innovations. Government and national and international actors must recognize, respect that the development justice and intersectional perspective to be an important approach to digitization, ensuring to not exclude anyone behind. In respect to that, we strongly recommend ensuring free, accessible, affordable, and appropriate internet access, digital tools and resources for everyone by developing autonomous and community-based infrastructures that is not controlled by big tech, government, resource allocations, and educative interventions to increase digital literacy, enhancing skills and capacities, and accelerating empowerment of women, girls, gender diverse people, and other marginalized groups in all extent. Similarly, implementing people-centered law and policies for global tech companies to provide access to free connectivity to community, ensuring internet to be public good and access should not be restricted on the basis of cost. Policies by tech companies, government educate speed and guarantee access to appropriate devices, accessible language accompanied with bodily integrity and data sovereignty, and engagement of civil society in a policy making and governing process around access. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have two speakers who are online. So first I call on Kalpana Viswanath from Safety Pin India. She is the co-founder and CEO. Kalpana, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I am here representing Safety Pin as well as the Global Coalition on Safe Cities, which is part of the Action Coalition of UN Women, as well as I was part of the CSO meeting yesterday. I do want to really appreciate all the initiatives by the different government representatives, but I think as civil society and as women's organizations, I think our concern is that over time we're finding that clearly online inequality mirrors inequalities on the ground, and in many parts of the world, inequalities on the ground are also increasing despite good policies, despite strong programs. So I think we need to keep in mind the backlash, the rise of forces that are pushing women back in many ways. Therefore, I think there are 3-4 key issues that I'd like to place here, which has been brought up by some of them. So digital literacy, digital divide is a big one. The country that I come from in India, as well as other countries in South Asia, as some of the speakers earlier had said, there's a very deep digital divide in terms of access to internet, in terms of access to mobile phones. And during COVID, I think this got exacerbated as even school education moved to the mobile phone. Secondly, I think the issue of regulation for big companies. I think this is something we need to push our governments to do so that the response from big companies, whether it's social media, whether it's cyberbullying, whether it's cybercrime, whether it's artificial intelligence. Today with ChatGPT and new ones being introduced every day, we know that offline biases get carried into the online spaces, and I therefore urge this whole gathering to take forward even the issue of equity with big companies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to invite Nandini Chami, participating online. She's Deputy Director and Fellow for IT for Change, India. Nandini, please.
Thank you. I represent IT for Change, a not-for-profit organization working at the intersections of digital technologies and social change with a focus on gender equality and development justice. It is increasingly clear that the gender digital divide is actually a divide in democracy and development. It can be addressed only through a connectivity plus approach, which requires public investment in the essential and foundational platform data and AI infrastructures that underpin all economic, social, and political activities. From this perspective, I would like to offer 2 recommendations that my organization is keen to see in the CSW outcome document. So recommendation 1 is about enhancing the share of official development assistance that will enable the development of autonomous platform data and AI infrastructure in countries in the global south, and strategies for commonsifying data and AI value in directions that will promote gender equality. The second issue is about the fact that increasingly we see a lot of these foundational digital platform and data infrastructure controlled by big tech or transnational digital corporations. And so it is absolutely vital that we have a response where transnational corporations are held accountable for violations of women's human rights in these essential infrastructure they control. Particularly, social media platforms must be held accountable for the societal costs of sexist hate speech. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank all speakers who made interventions and added to the rich conversations of innovative initiatives and also offering solutions coming out from your experiences and also sharing your challenges. I think if there's one key takeaway from this conversation is that discussing gender and digital cannot be separated from the overall discussion on gender equality challenges that still persist in this part of the world and the rest of the world. We have to address gender inequality in order to reduce gender digital divide. To do that, everybody mentioned that it requires multiple partnerships, and that's becoming very complicated because we also need to involve a lot more stakeholders, and also it requires investment. So thank you very much for sharing all these experiences and insight. Please note that summary recommendations from each of the 4 substantive sessions, including this one, will be presented by the session co-leads from the UN system during the 5th session, which will take place tomorrow afternoon, called the Review of Recommendations and Closing of Consultations. It will start at 2:30 p.m. tomorrow. During this session, comment on the draft recommendations will be welcomed. The meeting report, including the recommendations, will be shared with all participants in due time. The session is closed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miawi, and all of our participants for contributing to our plenary discussions. We will now take a lunch break before returning for our session 2 promptly at 2 o'clock. Excellencies, distinguished guests, and participants, welcome back. I hope you had a good lunch. And we will now commence our second session on fostering inclusive education in the digital age and promoting women and girls in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM, education and careers. I would like to introduce Ms. Upala Devi, UNFPA Asia-Pacific Regional Office, to introduce the focus of this panel discussion and the introductory speaker. The session will then be moderated by Ms. Shiresi Jha, UNICEF Regional Office for East Asia and the Pacific. Ms. Devi, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it really, Excellencies, distinguished guests and participants, a warm welcome back to the post-lunch session of day 1 of the Asia-Pacific Regional Consultation of the 67 CSW Commission on Status of Women. The session 2 is about fostering inclusive education in the digital age and promoting women and girls in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM in short, education careers. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to briefly take 2 minutes of your time to introduce the speakers, the panelists, and then give the floor over to my colleague, Shiresi Jha. So in terms of the speakers, firstly, I'm going to introduce Ms. Kwan Chanopaka Akaraldukul, Jiajia in short. Jiajia is currently a high school student from Bangkok. She's also a member of UNICEF's Young People's Action Team. As a high school student, she's interested in pursuing a STEM-based career, but she has been experiencing a lot of bias and challenges of young females who are interested in STEM education. And from these experiences, she tries to advance access to STEM education and opportunities for young females to be able to pursue a STEM career without discrimination for gender and stereotypes. We are fortunate to have Jiajia in person as a panelist today at the session. The second panelist is Ms. Josephine Stella. And again, we are very fortunate to have her there in person. She's a digital sexuality educator and a member of the Community of Practice for Sexual and Reproductive Health Content Creators in Indonesia, and a part of the digital sexuality education community of the Asia-Pacific, facilitated by the UN Population Fund. She's an individual content creator and a comprehensive sexuality educator who educates peers through her personal Instagram account and through weekly webinars. Josephine is also a media and communication manager at the Youth Interfaith Forum on Sexuality Indonesia, a not-for-profit organization that's been spearheaded by young people that focuses on building peace in the midst of diverse identities of faith and sexuality, a very, very challenging scenario. She's actively involved in various programs and campaigns focusing on sexual and reproductive health and rights, tolerance, and pluralism in the Indonesian context. Our third speaker, and she'll be online, she is not being able to join us in person at the event today. She is Ms. Shubha Sharma, who's the Commissioner cum Secretary, Women and Child Development Department of the Government of Orissa from India. Ms. Shubha Sharma is an Indian administrative officer of the 1999 batch of the Orissa cadre of India. She's presently holding the charge of the Commissioner cum Secretary in the Department of Women and Child Development in the government of Orissa since September last year. She has held various positions in the central government, in the Department of Commerce, Ministry of Culture, and the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission. In her position, she's also handling various positions, including Commissioner cum Secretary, Handlooms, Textile and Handicrafts, Director of Employment Skill Development, and as Collector. She has been instrumental in developing the much publicized online code management system in the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission in Orissa, which has won many national awards in India. She has also been a driving force for the establishment of Kalabhumi, which is an Orissa-based crafts museum, and the revival of various crafts culture clusters. She has authored various articles and 2 works of fiction, which has also received widespread appreciation and recognition. And last but not the least, I have the pleasure of introducing Ms. Aisha Adnan. She'll be with us online today, and she's the co-founder of Women in Tech Maldives. It's a not-for-profit organization that aims to empower and inspire women in the tech industry. The organization has successfully encouraged more women and girls to pursue careers in technology through various awareness campaigns and skills and development programs in the Maldivian context. Aisha is actually known for her expertise in designing and delivering training and awareness sessions on online safety, digital literacy, digital skill development, and gender equality issues. She's also been very actively engaged and involved in mentorship of young women and girls, and publicly speaking on these topics in the Maldivian context. Additionally, she also leads software development teams at the Allied Insurance Company of the Maldives. She is also a well-known technology-focused writer and shareholder of a technology news media company where she publishes technology-focused articles in the local language, which is Divehi. So I've introduced all the panelists, and now I'm going to hand the floor over to our introductory speaker for this panel, my colleague, Ms. Veronica Anja Nijko, who's a regional gender advisor for UNICEF's South Asia Regional Office, and she's there with us in person. So Veronica, over to you for delivering the introductory remarks for this session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Upala. Are you showing the slides for me? Yeah, I think I'll do the introductory presentation to set the ball rolling for this interesting session, which Upala has introduced. I think we'll be focusing on understanding the gender gap in access to online and digital technology and services, including in STEM education. And basically it focuses what are those gender gaps in access to tech and digital devices among girls and women, the gender gaps in STEM, as I mentioned, and reasons for the gaps within the region, and what are those impacts, and what are some of the solutions that broadly within the Asian Pacific, partners are working on to address the gender digital divide. Ladies and gentlemen, I think as we are all aware, technology in this 21st century has opened up opportunities to new digital and transferable skills that does prepare individuals for life and work. But unfortunately, within Asia Pacific, girls and women continue to have limited access to devices, digital learning, and opportunities, which is a stumbling block to their effective participation in public life and opportunities, including economic opportunities, as various government delegation alluded to in the morning. Next slide. Yes, so I think picking up from the morning conversation, I think I will not belabor much on the statistics. I think the gaps within this region, as you can see, I think over 90% of jobs, including markets, as Indonesia and the rest of the other government colleagues alluded to, they have a digital component. And in terms of what digital component in terms of jobs and marketing are doing within the economy and the empowerment of women, I think was already also emphasized in the morning. And then when you look at in terms of access to devices, particularly mobile phones, you see where the girls are and then where the men are as well in terms of access to mobile services. And what does it mean in terms of opportunities, not only for learning, including of business opportunities and stuff like that. And then as well, when it comes to internet usage within Asia Pacific, I think those are the statistics and what does it mean within this 21st century, particularly also where we're coming from, where physical meetings like this were not available, and then only access to internet and mobile phones could facilitate not only access to information, including life-saving services, and where women are less having access to internet, what are the repercussions? And then you'd see also in terms of girls' secondary education, they are 6 times more likely to be online than those with only a primary education. And then when you look at female users, they are also like 1.6 times more likely than men to report in terms of lack of access and barriers to digital technology. When you go on the side, I think in terms of mobile ownership, there are issues that come into play, affordability, literacy and skills, particularly to women and girls. I think in the morning also somebody touched on the whole issue of safety and security around use of internet and mobiles and family matters in terms of the perception of what mobile phones or digital technology have on women and girls, particularly the girl child, and the fears around the same. Same thing with the use of mobile internet and how the community is prepared to allow their girls, particularly and women, to access use of digital, and these become also a key barrier that contribute to the gender digital divide. Next slide. Yeah, and then in terms of STEM, just like the gender digital divide, I think there are various biased gender norms and stereotypes that are embedded not only in the school setup, but in curriculum, in textbooks, in teaching, including the learning practices that derail girls' choices on what to study, particularly in STEM careers. So this also impacts, as we already know, their career-wise and an opportunity in STEM, science, technology, and ICT. And then I think globally, we've also seen that teachers as well as parents, they also do contribute intentionally or unintentionally to perpetuate the biases around education and career path for girls. Then I think what is showing on the slide is also in terms of where are the girls when it comes to picking STEM and as a career within their profession. And then this also, like I mentioned, it does intersect what they are going to be in terms of within the ICT or STEM careers around the world. And then I think we've seen globally that it's only around 35% women in STEM and only 3% women in ICT career against 97% of which these are men. And you can just imagine within the 21st century, what does it mean to the girl who is striving to identify a career path when they are being discriminated intentionally or unintentionally to take the STEM pathway. Next slide. And then what are some of the reasons for the gaps? I think some were already alluded to by the previous speakers in the morning. I think lack of training opportunities, and then fewer role models within ICT and STEM among the fewer females who are there. And then people think that this is a male-dominated culture, and it's not only the thinking, but I think the statistics are also able to tell us that only 3% is women in leadership within the ICT, which means people consider it as a male-dominated. And what does it mean to a girl who is trying to aspire to grow into any profession? And then I think the whole issue of role of a primary provider of services are in the home, so that most of the times girls are missing school, they are juggling family care as well as going to school, and then to study science and stuff like that. They think probably this is high. And then the whole issue of cyberbullying and safety, which colleagues already talked about in the morning. And I think, as I said, around the access to digital divide, the whole issue of access to internet and devices by women and girls, it's a tall order within this region, the reasons which I gave earlier on in terms of affordability, social norms, and stuff like that. And also poverty, which is linked to affordability of digital devices. And gender norms I've already talked about. And then lack of early introduction to digital literacy because of fear or unavailability of internet, affordability, and the whole access in itself. And then the whole issue of people thinking that internet is not a safe space. Next. I guess maybe I just go to the last one in the interest of time. This is more or less like a repetition. Can I have yes? No, the last one. Yes, so some of the approaches that we do promote is ensuring that there's improved access to and use of digital technology and the internet for girls. So handing in gadgets, whether individual or collective, to girls with content that is co-created by the girls themselves. And then also, as I mentioned, developing the skills that are needed for girls to use the digital technology, including having a STEM as a career pathway. And then also, as colleagues mentioned in the morning, partnership with non-traditional partners, whether women-led grassroots organization, a private sector, so that we can embrace digital solutions for girls and women as a programming tool within the work that we do within development and emergency setting. And then, as I mentioned, collaboration with private sector for availability of subsidized internet, free gadgets or collective gadgets, which should be accessible to women and girls. And then working with social behavioral science colleagues with communities to change the cultural norms. As I mentioned, most of our girls are not having access to digital because fear and the perception that gadgets are not good, there's no safety, and all the prejudice that come along with use of internet that contribute to widen the gender digital gap within the region. Next. Yeah, and then as I mentioned, I think we have to work collectively together in terms of how do we address these structural systemic factors that causes or contribute to affordability or literacy skills around digital to women and girls, and the whole issue of safety, cyberbullying, and also the social norms that contribute to consider internet gadgets as non-safe to the girls. And then, as I mentioned, utilizing the designing of intervention that do remove these cultural and practical barriers and make technological use for women, and embracing digital skills or digital solutions as a programming tool for girls. And then involving women, of course, and girls in the design, development, and rollout and management of digital products and services. We heard in the morning how digital is facilitating market, is promoting women in terms of business, and it has also worked for women and girls during the time of COVID to access life-saving information and services. And I'll end my presentation with taking you to Bangladesh, where investment in a skill for an adolescent girl in rural Bangladesh had payoffs not only to her, but also to her family and the community, and how male involvement of the father or the caregivers to allow girls to access digital or take a STEM career is useful within a community. It's a 1-minute video.
ফ্যামিলি থেকে তো মেয়েরা কাজ শিখতে দেয় না এখন যদি আমি শিখি অন্য ফ্যামিলি কইব যে এই ফ্যামিলি থেকে একটা মেয়ে কাজ শিখে তা আমার মেয়ে কাজ শিখলে সমস্যা গীতা এটা লাগে আমি কাজ করলাম যাতে আমার দেখা দেখি অন্য মেয়েরাও কাজ করতে পারে
আমি নিজে একটা কাজ ঠিকবেলায় যদি শিক্ষা রইল আর কোনো সময় যদি আমি পারি আমার ক্ষমতায় কুলায় তো একটু দোকানঘাট খুলে দিলাম।
Thank you so much. With this Bangladesh example and many more, communities are being transformed, girls are being inspired, and with family support, we can do more. That's the end of the introduction. Let me hand over to the overall moderator, who is Shreya Sija. She's a regional advisor for gender in East Asia and the Pacific. Over to you, Shreyas. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Veronica, for framing our discussion today and really for highlighting the gaps that exist in the digital space, in the access to education, but also ending with that very positive note of what we can collectively do in order to bring about a change and how the education system can actually support girls in accessing these skills to make the transition from education to employment, in STEM space. We will now begin our panel discussion. It's going to last about half an hour. Upala has already introduced the 4 panelists, and we are very excited to hear from them. There will be 2 rounds of questions. We will start with the Kwan Chanok Paka Akar Dekul or Jaja. We are very delighted to have Jaja with us. She is part of the UNICEF Young People's Action Net team. So we've been working very closely with her. She is a high school student who is currently pursuing science in high school. And we are very delighted to hear from Jaja. So Jaja, my question to you is, could you share some examples based on your personal experiences of challenges and biases that girls face in accessing STEM education and career, and what are some things that work, for girls, and some things that have worked for you in pursuing an education in STEM, and how can we support girls to make these kind of life choices, in STEM careers? Over to you, Jaja.
Yeah, so I think that everyone agrees that the digital world and technology has a really high influence in the 21st century. And even so, there needs to be more technological usage in educational fields. And I truly believe that digital skills are highly essential in current world society, and that it's really important that kids develop these skills. But by having kids jot notes and having a few technology experiences is not enough for a kid to cultivate an interest in STEM. My previous science teacher would often teach us through presentations, and they were text-based. So I often found it really abstract and really boring, and that it didn't foster any curiosity. My new science teacher, however, took a completely different approach, where she actually taught us with both hands-on and virtual labs, as well as encouraged us to engage with the materials and other people. And due to that change of teaching style, I felt that my interest in STEM was renewed and that it came back more powerful. And when I was 12, I took an interest to pursue STEM after my interest in the entertainment field shifted to science. Basically, just like any other middle schooler, I was interested in makeup and cosmetic surgeries, which then shifted towards skincare and dermatology. However, during that process, I was told that traits such as assertiveness and ambitiousness were undesirable traits of a woman, and they would say that I should opt for less impactful positions because men would always dominate it. My male peer, however, who did the exact same things as me, did not face such comments, and although I felt discouraged at times, existing female figures remain to be my main motivation to take pride in these traits and use them for a good cause. A female figure who really inspired me was Dr. Sandra Lee. She is a board-certified dermatologist, a skin cancer surgeon, and a cosmetic surgeon. And I aspire to have the certifications she has, and she also proved to me that doctors do not only need to help physically, but they could actually bring back patients' confidence that they once had, and it's just really powerful, and it really inspired me to become a dermatologist. This is why it's really important that, young girls have female inspirational figures because they can really push through the discrimination with this type of support. And I similarly believe that females should also be a key part in innovations and not just someone that you can consult. Innovations and research should be applicable to everyone. An example of this could be the crash test dummies, where the dummies were made as a male body type, and because of that, many women risked their lives due to car crashes. And with these challenges, it's really vital to introduce STEM in a gender neutral way. And as a child, I noticed how toys at the boys section was primarily based in STEM and how main characters of science cartoons were always males. And this limited my interest in STEM, and it took me a long time to actually come out of my shell and actually pursue STEM. And when people talk about increasing female participation in STEM, I often think about classroom environments because teachers play a huge role in sparking interests. I truly believe that teachers do not only have the job to educate students, but to actually try their best to foster students' interest in that particular subject. Many of us are taught STEM subjects, but it rarely cultivates innovation and creativity. By switching the way teachers teach to a student-centered approach and a globally competent one, we're creating innovators, critical thinkers, and global participants. Gender-blind opportunities also work well, as it exposes young girls to a variety of inspirational female figures. And similar to that, access to STEM education has a huge impact on one's life. As mentioned before, technology has a really huge influence in the 21st century. Therefore, there's going to be a lot of demand for STEM graduates, thus making them more employable. And by that, they could actually STEM out and create opportunities and platforms for other people and also advocate for their struggles growing up. A thing I really enjoy about STEM is the variety of skills it actually cultivates due to it being interdisciplinary, such as creativity, innovation, and critical thinking, and other soft and hard skills. And when you incorporate that with the knowledge you've learned from this field, you can actually help the society by contributing to real-world issues. So to sum everything up, there's a lot of challenges in the STEM field, but with the right education and support, a girl can fight through gender bias and inspire others by normalizing women in STEM. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Thank you so much, Jaja. I think you really covered some of the really important points, and the role of teachers and the role of education system in really promoting girls in STEM. Also, how we can actually challenge some of the existing norms that exist. You touched upon an important point around, some of the issues that we don't necessarily think is having an impact on young people, like things like toys or the content that you think you see on social media, and how that also shapes your interest, and how that actually in many cases is still perpetuating the bias that girls are facing. I'm going to turn now to Josephine. Josephine, we're very happy to have you here. As Upala mentioned, Josephine is a digital sexuality educator, and she's a member of the community of practice on sexual and reproductive health content creators in Indonesia. Josephine, we are very happy to have you here. You have worked extensively with young people on raising awareness around sexuality education and how technology can play a really big role in bridging the gender gaps in online learning. So could you share some good practices of digital sexuality education, from this community, which contributes to building the skills for content creators and starting the conversation in the digital space around sexual and reproductive health?
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Josephine Stella. I'm here to represent the Asia-Pacific Digital Sexuality Education Community and Community of Practice Indonesia. Before telling more about these two communities, I would like to share my personal story why I became a digital sexuality educator. When I was 22 years old, I wish I knew that my boyfriend was manipulating me so I can read the sign, read the red flags, and get out from the toxic relationship. When my boyfriend is just pull my hair, smash me, even curse and sexually assault me, I still feel love him. At the moment, I don't feel like I deserve to be happy, and I was not aware that I am in a danger. So as a digital sexuality educator, my mission is to help and empower girls and young women to understand their bodies and their rights so they would not be trapped in a toxic relationship, experience GBV, and unwanted pregnancy. I've been actively running free GSE comprehensive sexuality webinars in 2021 with my team, Sicilism. We are only 5 people, and I met a lot of girls and young women who experience a similar case like me, even worse. They don't know well about GSE and sexual health and are thankful for the digital sexuality education we give because it helped them a lot and because it's still taboo to talk about sex and GBV in Indonesia and many parts of Asia. So giving sex education in new ways, example for through social media, is a game changer. As I have shared before, I'm here to represent a COP, Community of Practice Indonesia, and Asia-Pacific Digital Sexuality Education Community. These two communities are essentially a community of like-minded young content creator who focus actively produce content about sexual health and gender issue. UNFPA Indonesia is facilitates these communities in collaboration with Cyclus Indonesia. We came from diverse background, diverse approaches and issues. They are from NGOs, youth-led communities, the private sector, and individual influencer. We are co-partner and co-designer in DCOP and DSE. So the governance, structure, decision-making process, activities, campaign, training are designed collaboratively with all members, ensuring meaningful youth engagement. As a member of this community, I can join group mentoring session, I can join the boot camps, training with expert, and I gain the capacity to make good, comprehensive, and accountable content. We can share anything such as evidence, tools, resource, and best practice with each other. So I get several benefits, like having access for information like a list of research persons and sexual health content materials because we can access a free website that provide a bank of content on sexual health and get a chance to be involved in various youth-led research. I can brainstorm with like-minded creator in this community and create joint campaign and collaboration together. And the DSE, we have a community calls, online conference, and online boot camps. I attended the Desire Bootcamp 2022, and when I took the challenge to become a facilitator in one of their webinar session, in these activities I gain new perspective, insight, tips and trick from other content creators in Asia Pacific. For example, in Indonesia, when we make content about sexual health, the content will be easily taken down by the report on by the society and the platform itself. I can upload it again, but the risk my social media is being taken down or gone. So
because in Indonesia we easily have high engagement via social media. It's very different from what happened to other content creators, especially from others country. They don't find difficult to upload educational content about sexual health, but their challenge is to engage with the audience on social media. It means being member of COP and the Asia-Pacific DSC community allows me to get a lot of insight from other creators because sometimes we have different challenge, we have different approaches, we have different target audience, products, topics, and issue, and we can learn one another. It also boosts my confidence. I learn speak up about this issue, initiate conversation in English, and get more opportunities to join the important discussion on sexual health like this forum. I'm aware that we have different challenge because sexual health and gender equality topics are still sensitive and in some countries across region, and using gender transformative approach is a key. To deal with out of ordinary challenges, we need extraordinary solution. So let's collaborate. I recommend you to work with digital content creators like me because we can humanize the important message to our target audience and bring up a community of educators and creators who can promote important and often sensitive message on sexual health, gender equality, and the empowerment of all women and girls to a wide target audience in the digital space is also smart approach. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Josephine. Thank you for sharing your personal story as well. And yes. Yes, thank you so much. And it's just so inspiring to see how you have, you know, learned so much from your experience and really helped to create a positive change using the digital space. Really inspiring. Our third panelist is Ms. Shubha Sharma. Ms. Sharma, we are very happy to have you join us virtually from Odisha. I hope you can hear us. Ms. Sharma is the Commissioner and Secretary for the Government of Odisha in India, and she's presently holding the charge of Commissioner in the Department of Women and Child Development. She's also the pioneer for many digital solutions that are providing, services for girls and women in the state. So, Ms. Sharma, thank you so much for joining the panel. You have done very innovative work in leveraging technology, as I just said, and as a means to build girls' skills, which has then had several positive economic and social outcomes. So based on your experience in Odisha, what role do you see that government's playing in promoting girls' participation in STEM education and ensuring accessible technology for all? Over to you, Ms. Sharma.
A very good afternoon to all the panelists and other participants. Thank you for allowing me to participate in this dialogue. And it is a privilege to be a part of this, more so because you have accommodated my request and allowed me to join you online. So I will come straight to the topic which has been assigned to me. The first thing that the government of Odisha, while working for adolescent girls, decided was, why should we focus on adolescents? Primarily because we see them as the future of tomorrow. The girls of today are the mothers, the homemakers, and the nurturers of tomorrow. And more importantly, it is not only adolescent girls, but adolescent boys that we focus upon, because we have this very important concept of mainstreaming, of bringing men into the dialogue and discussion about women's empowerment. And we would like to start that from the adolescent stage. For this purpose, the government looks at a comprehensive strategy which focuses on multiple areas of development for the adolescents, special focus definitely on girls. First is the health. So there are numerous practices on menstrual hygiene, on anemia, on regular health checkups, on nourishment that are done with the support and in convergence with the health department. The second is obviously nutrition. My department has the responsibility of ensuring that adolescent girls receive adequate nutrition so that they can develop into healthy women of tomorrow, for which we provide them take-home ration, which basically consists of nutritious food items like Bengal gram, jaggery, wheat, and also provide them eggs for their protein enrichment on a weekly basis. The third and very, very important component is education. So all girls are encouraged to be enrolled in schools. Monitoring is done so that in case there are dropouts, we find out the reason for dropout, we counsel them, and we try to bring them back into the educational system, either through regular schooling or through something which is called open schooling and bridge courses in Orissa. More importantly, within the school environment also, they are provided nutrition in the shape of the midday meal program, and they are also provided counseling and menstrual hygiene products. The third and important aspect is social empowerment. For social empowerment, we look at Prevention of Child Marriage Act, and we have already designated various officers in the field for preventing occurrence of child marriages. Now, this is a very complex problem, but with the support of UNICEF and their other partner organizations, we have done fairly well in creating social awareness, in building the capacities of religious leaders who perform and solemnize these marriages, and also on the behalf of the community, we identify community leaders who then create awareness about the evils of child marriage and try and educate the community to move away from child marriages. The last and very important aspect of empowerment is economic empowerment, providing them livelihood skills and providing them livelihood education so that they become economically independent and therefore are able to demand their rights. With all this, we focus on the adolescent group, and they are linked to women empowerment programs such as the Mission Shakti program of Government of Odisha, which has done extremely well. Today, there are 70 million women in the fold of Mission Shakti groups, which are named as self-help groups. These groups are engaged in economic activity, in receiving credit from banks, and above all, in creating social awareness and sensitization. A large number of these women are also now contesting elections and are holding posts of political position. How do we achieve all this? The backbone of this delivery structure is obviously the state ICDS machinery, which is heavily dependent upon the Anganwadi worker. Due to COVID, there was a transformational shift in the use of additional technology. So now all Anganwadi workers have been provided with mobile phones, with internet connectivity support, and these girl groups who are termed as Sakhi Sahelis and the boys are termed as Sakha Bandhus are meeting on a weekly basis in Anganwadi centers, wherein they are encouraged to have access to this technology. Online training material has been developed in partnership with UNICEF, which is used by these adolescents in the presence of the Anganwadi worker to handle their doubts, to talk about issues which are otherwise not discussed in their homes. As most of us know, access to mobile phones is mostly with the male gender. More than 50% of phones are with men, and even a lesser number is available to adolescent girls. So they are dependent to a considerable extent on accessibility to technology and to these online courses that we have developed on their parents' access. However, we have created an alternative of providing them access every week in the Anganwadi center through the Anganwadi worker. In addition, twice a month, we are having meetings with parents, with elders of the family who come in, where we discuss a wide range of issues on nutrition, child health, adolescent issues, social and mental issues, and we encourage them to get their adolescents to enroll in these courses so that they can have access to this course material. A very unique aspect is that it is not necessary for continuous internet connectivity to be able to access this. They can download the material and use it offline during their free time whenever they would like to. One important aspect that we have noticed is that while there is a large participation by adolescent girls and by women in general in economic activities, most of it is in the non-STEM related areas. So now there is a concerted push from the department and from the education department to encourage girls to look at non-conventional areas and sectors, such as driving. We have a school in one of the remote parts of Orissa, which is empowering them and training them on mining activities, and therefore looking at non-conventional centers. In schools, there is a heavy push towards use of technology. Computers are made available, and both genders, boys and girls, are being provided equal access. While this program has been on for a few years, we hope that in the coming days, there will be a massive push and scaling up of these activities, as we are feeling confident that now our machinery is suitably geared up to encourage these young girls to fly and attain their dreams. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sharma. That was really helpful. And it was just, I really liked the way that, you actually connected the entire holistic approach that we need for adolescent girls empowerment, right? So it begins and how we need to integrate technology as part of the overall solution package. So it's really amazing to see the work that you're doing, and for also talking about the challenges that we face in terms of the implementation. I am going to turn to our final panelist, Ms. Aisha Adnan, who's joining us from Maldives. Aisha is the co-founder of Women in Tech Maldives, which is a non-profit organization. Aisha, thank you so much for joining us. How do you see the use of technology in improving STEM education and career opportunity for girls and women in future? And as the founder of Women in Tech organization in Maldives, could you share some examples that you have seen that has a positive impact in promoting women and girl STEM interest among women and girls? So over to you, Aisha.
Hello. Greetings from Maldives. 7th February, yesterday, we all celebrated Safer Internet Day throughout the world. And I want to begin by an action. Let's be responsible, safe, and sensible together, everyone together, for us providing a safer cyber space for adolescent girls. Let's help each other out to be safe on the internet. Yes. I would take, there are two parts in the question. I think the first one is how technology is an enabler for STEM education and digital career focus. One of the proof that we see today is online learning, and that has been evolving, growing, and that has been a very good learning resource for a lot of younger girls on different subjects. Today, in fact, our younger panelists here today did talk about how these resources have helped them to become stronger and better change makers. I see technology taking a different turn now, from just taking it as a viewing tool to an interactive learning platform where we have the new technologies like AR, augmented reality, and virtual reality, making STEM education more interactive, engaging, and appealing to girls and women. in a way that they get more confidence in using or accessing these tools. Of course, the work that we have to enable the access and give more knowledge is still that's a long way to go, but technology has actually created these opportunities. And I think initially when we started from Vero's presentation as well, we talk about breaking down the barriers and lack of role models. Through the technology, we have actually a way to reach out the role models from different parts of the world. Mentors are also available. It's just the accessibility is the thing I think we all need to work on, and the content. And we all know that coming from small islands or small communities or marginalized communities, we women, we have less mobility due to unpaid care work that we have to do at home. So which kind of a way puts the community that women, we need to be at home. We are only good for maybe taking care of children or doing house chores. I think together with that, with the technology, it offers the possibility of new flexible work options through a lot of remote opportunities. Yeah, giving them chance to be a part of the gig economy. Today, just like I'm staying at home and participating in this seminar, and then there are others who actually perform remote works across. It doesn't have to be technology related career, but there are other opportunities as well. I see the remote working platforms are also available across, making a girl, let's say in a remote island in the Maldives, can now work for a company in Silicon Valley as well, or come up or grow a company where which can be accessed and used by people all over the world. We have policy limitations or infrastructure limitations, but it is not a limitation of technology. I think it's the perceptions, our priorities, and the initiatives that as countries we want to take. Another area that I also observe is that due to the advance of the technologies, we see the manual, physical, and cognitive skills. The use of the demand is being less. Over in the future, we will see it being less. And this is where I think the new technologies like AI and automation and the other powerful tools, it will actually help girls get these skills faster and makes it easier to adapt and go for more exciting career opportunities in the future. When we talk about, I also like to share some of the experiences that we have with women in Tech Maldives. It is an organization we started because, of course, we don't see much women working in the field. Even though we have a very small population, we don't see them much. So it started over a coffee, and then it grew wider and wider. The first approach that we took was going on taking the power of social media and online news, TVs, radios, and to promote the work of women. This was the way that we were able to reach different remote island communities at the same time. And together, when they see role models, they know that there are, even though few women, they still have hope that there are opportunities. Also, since we made this social media hype that women in Tech Maldives is there, and there are amazing women who's working in the technology field, what happened was even the private sector joined us. This became a way for them to showcase women working who were hidden, who were not shown before. They came to the forefront and said, look, we also have a female software developer. Then they started sharing their stories. So I think it's in a way that we encourage, we influence them to share this, so other girls can also think like, okay, I'm growing up, I can actually be a software developer or somebody, and then this company will have this kind of opportunities. So that is one approach that we took. Another one I could share is we promote a culture of partnership. When designing our programs, we know that we cannot reach the dispersed islands. We cannot reach alone. We are just a small group of people. Thus, we seek partnerships with private sector like the banks, the telcos, and other major organizations in designing our programs. We not only go for funds, we also leverage their technological resources and their manpower to expand our reach. Like when they have different branches across the nation, it's easier for us also to disperse the resources, and they have more experienced people as well. So we go along with them. And when designing our programs, we
Sorry, Aisha.
Yeah.
I just sorry to cut you off,
Yeah,
but
it's
we're
okay.
just running a little bit short of time, so maybe if you could wrap up.
Yeah, sure. Another area that we really focus is on when we talk about digital security and cyberspace. We conduct these programs with the objective of keeping internet a safe space for girls, but to truly ensure cybersecurity, everyone, and including girls, boys, men, policymakers, and community leaders must be included in this conversation. So we try to bring our digital literacy programs or cybersecurity programs together as a focusing on the whole community. I think that is it for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much to all the panelists. We've really heard a range of experiences as well as very practical of what what we can do from the government side, from civil society, from private sector, but also from young people about what truly works for them to have a more inclusive approach to education and STEM education and making technology more accessible, but also how technology then helps women to have more empowered choices in their lives. We have just 5 minutes, and I wanted to give all the panelists 1 minute, maybe, and maybe we'll reverse the order a little bit. We'll mix it up and ask maybe 2 questions. Maybe just I'm going to limit it to 1 question. I'm going to turn to you, Josephine, first. Is there something that you have heard today or something else that makes you hopeful about reducing and then promoting STEM skills and education for girls? And so just 1 minute each. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. As I had shared before, we have different challenges and approaches to promoting STEM and inclusive education. I hope all girls in the future can master digital literacy skill. I want all girls to be able to learn and get inspired by digital educators and content creators like me, so they can get important education, including sex education, even outside of school. I want all girls to be able to use digital space to share their voice, so content creators like me can utilize their voice and empower them to understand their bodies and their rights. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Josephine. Jaja, what about you? Is there anything that you want to share, something that you've heard, something that makes you hopeful for the future for women and girls in STEM?
Yeah. Well, some things I've seen in school is how teachers are starting to teach in a way that's more student-focused and more globally competent. And teachers do this by letting us engage in meaningful conversations and debates. And I've actually started to see how young girls are actually taking an active role in researching and debating these topics as well. And I've also noticed an increased rate of girls in STEM classes. And this year, the ratio of females to males in AP STEM classes were equal or sometimes even more. And I'm also working with the Union International, and a fellow writer of mine actually wrote about how she was inspired by the Society of Women Engineers and opened the first chapter in Thailand. And that's really fascinating because she took an inspiration and took action on it and really is taking an active leadership role in STEM. So these are just a few examples that really make me hopeful in the future.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for sticking to the time. And Aisha, I'm going to give you the final word. Anything that you've seen, that you've heard today that's making you hopeful about the future for women and girls in STEM and bridging this divide?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think we all work for one thing, to be part of this economy to make a better world. This is through the innovation and work in foreign industry or creating an industry. I see companies and organizations taking a more active role in promoting STEM education. I truly feel like they are starting to realize that catering to the half of the population in the right way can be beneficial for their growth as well. So that is one thing I see. And another thing is parents coming up forward and working together with girls to change the attitudes towards the STEM careers. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisha. And with that note and this very positive, optimistic note, we will take a short break. Many thanks to all the panelists for joining us. And we will take a short break now, right? So please give them a round of applause and thank you.
Dear participants, if I could please ask you to take your seats. We will now begin our session 2 plenary discussions, which will be moderated by Ms. Hulda Uma, Planning and Coordination Specialist, UN Women Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. Please, Ms. Uma, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and welcome back, everybody, for a very, hopefully, interactive plenary discussion. I am here with my colleague Ting Ting from ESCAP, who's going to keep me honest in terms of time. We have a slightly ambitious agenda right now. We have 35 minutes in which we hope to receive some very interesting inputs from yourselves just to get an understanding of your own experiences and some recommendations in light of the session we just had. As has been shared, my name is Hulda Uma and I work for UN Women. And I'm just going to run through just a couple of some of the ways in which we're going to make sure that we have enough to be able to make for a useful discussion. Just a reminder that the outcome of this consultation will be a set of recommendations on areas for accelerated action, which we shall be submitting as a region ahead of the global CSW session. Secondly, we are hoping that we can hear from as many of you as possible within the 35 minutes magic. So I hope for the best. And in light of that, we are going to be kindly requesting that each intervention is just 2 minutes long. We're going to have a timer on the screen, which you've seen before, which you kindly request that you refer to as you make your statements. And so we can hear from as many of you as possible. For those who are joining online, we ask that you please use the chat box function because we will not be referring to raised hands. So if you could just indicate that you wish to speak by also indicating your name and country, it will help us, and your organization, of course. We'll be accepting one intervention per country in order to ensure that we have as many inputs as possible. In the guidance that you received ahead of this meeting, you will note that we invited any expressions of interest ahead of the different sessions, and we have a few names already. For those who did not submit, we will be inviting you to please indicate either by raising your hand or using the placard in front of you, so we can be able to know to invite you to take the floor. The order we'll be taking is that we'll be first inviting government delegates, and with that, I'm going to with Ting Ting's support, be able to see whether we can start inviting the first delegate. On this, I'd like to request Ms. Leni Rosalind from the government of Indonesia to please take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great honor to participate in this important forum. Allow me to use this opportunity to celebrate our continued support and commitment in the promotion and protection of the rights of women and girls all over the world. Women and children make up about 2/3 of Indonesia's total population. However, women's participation in the digital economy remains challenged. Various barriers, including stereotypes, still hampers girls in entering STEM fields, accessing digital technologies. Further, these challenges also becoming critical factors when it comes to promoting women as leaders in the technology and digital industry. To close such digital gender gap, it is necessary to create an environment which ensures that women get equal access and opportunities to play an active role in digital technology and STEM issues. Thus, the support of disaggregated data as well as education and skills improvement are needed. The Indonesian G20 presidency in last year has built 2 points of initiative in order to help solve these challenges faced by women and girls by mainly focusing on digital inclusive educations. First, building improvement programs through curricula, training, and programs that can improve women's skills in the future. Second, building an inclusive digital environment by creating an inclusive digital environment for women. Safer Internet Day, which we commemorate today, is an initiative recognized by more than 200 countries, which aims to increase public awareness regarding various challenges in cyberspace, especially for women and children. The government of Indonesia, especially our Ministry of Women Empowerment and Child Protection, together with other ministries and government institutions, NGOs, academia, international partners, media, and private sectors have been working together in fostering inclusive education in the digital age and promoting women and girls in STEM educations and careers, focusing on improving women in technology, technology for women, tech benefit women, with women participation in technology, increase women participation in the technology industry, provide training, scholarships for women in general to equip them with ICT skills. And by women, meaning that female leaderships, we create a friendly environment for women to take leadership role in organizations and encourage more women to take leadership roles. Honorable chairs, excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, finally, let me close by stating that my government is committed to work together for promoting international collaboration in the spirit of mutual respect and beneficial for all. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rosalind. I'd like to then hand over the floor to Ms. Maria Filomena Babo Martins from Timor-Leste.
Thank you very much. The Secretary of State, thank you to moderator. Good afternoon, everyone here in this room. The Secretary of State for Equality and Inclusion Timor-Leste not only had the sub-program of women's empowerment, but also we have any other sub-programs very important, such as prevention of violence against women and girls, and promotion of women's participation in politics and decision making. Equality for women and girls is not only a basic human rights, it is a social and economic imperative stated by the Secretary General of United Nations. When women are well educated and has empowered economics, are more productive and strong in Timor-Leste, the information and technologies has been used and optimizing in all sectors. In the education sector, the use and dependency on the internet is very large in conducting search on learning process in public works. The dependency on the use of internet also high as well as in the business sector. Mostly of women are use social media such as Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube to promote their online selling, culinary, and others. Last year in 2022, we start with a campaign of digital literacy targeting students and community. We work together with Secretary of State for Social and Equality and Inclusion and Secretary of State for Communication, Social Communication. Science, technology, and innovation are key driving in our in increasing global and digital society. Women and girls' involvement of in the STEAM cover in education still very low. For the very first time in Timor-Leste in 2002, known as National Communication Authority in partnership with National University of Timor-Leste, Faculty of Engineering, FTU Regional of Bangkok and Jakarta, we conduct a program called Girls in ICT, targeting secondary school and women who work in the field of organizing and telecommunication IT. Total students around 75 from public and private schools. We also conduct a campaign called Kahoot on related issue about ICT. This program aimed to raise awareness, advocate and strengthen the role of girls can play through STEAM. Furthermore, to help and encourage more girls and young women to pursue STEAM education and to inspire girls and women to work in the STEAM career. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delegate from Timor-Leste. Just checking if there are any other government delegations that would wish to speak at this point before we move on to non-governmental partners. With that, I would like to move on to non-governmental partners. I note that we do not have at this time any UN or INGO partners that are interested in submitting at this point. So we shall go straight to the first speaker, and that is Ria C. from She Loves Tech. The floor is yours.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chair. I'm Ria C. from She Loves Tech. It is a privilege to share recommendations from the Asia-Pacific Civil Society Forum. In today's highly digital world, STEM has become, without a doubt, as we heard today over and over again, critical to sustainable social and economic growth. However, the unequal participation between genders, especially those who have been left furthest behind, is causing a loss of talent, perspectives, and innovation, negatively impacting larger societal progress. Across Asia and the Pacific, addressing the gender gap in STEM means first dismantling deeply rooted and systemic social, cultural, economic, and psychological barriers. With this, we urge member states to, first, reframe approaches to gender equality in STEM from binary terms to finer degrees of identity, such as race, ethnicity, disability, sexuality, age, and various socioeconomic classes, and ensure meaningful participation of women in all their diversity across all aspects and levels of the education system. Second, include parents and the broader community in STEM education programs to improve their own literacy on STEM and its benefits, as well as awareness of STEM careers for women and girls. Third, allocate adequate budget and work with private and civil society sectors to integrate gender-responsive STEM education and career opportunities, not only in education and in ICT sectors, but also national development plans. Fourth, reformulate basic compulsory education to include gender-responsive STEM holistically, from basic STEM literacy to an integrated set of digital, cognitive, social, and emotional skills necessary in this fast-evolving tech space. STEM education should also be rooted in the context of real life, in ways that can prepare women and girls to not just become workers, but also become leaders, innovators, entrepreneurs, and forces of change. Next, and finally, we'd like to urge the government to develop and enforce equitable labor policies, social protection measures, and accountability mechanisms that are not just job-based, but individual-based in areas such as paid maternity, parental leaves, affordable childcare, equal pay to curb the adverse effects of the feminization of labor, especially in Asia and the Pacific, where cheap labor is celebrated as a resource. Efforts to promote girls' and women's skill development need to go hand in hand with a broader reassessment of how women's skills are commonly valued and regarded. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your submission, Ms. C. I will now hand over the floor to Ms. Pippa McDougall from Connect Women, team of GSMA online.
Thank you very much for having me. Dear Excellencies and esteemed colleagues, thank you for organizing this very important consultation. As some of you may know, the GSMA collects gender disaggregated data on mobile internet use, but also mobile phone and smartphone ownership for South Asia and East Asia and the Pacific. In South Asia, women are currently 41% less likely than men to use mobile internet, whereas in East Asia and the Pacific, women are 2% less likely than men to use mobile internet. Informed and targeted action is required from policymakers, but also industry, the development community, and other stakeholders to better measure, understand, and address the challenges that perpetuate the gender digital divide. Stakeholders need to work better together to improve gender equality and social norms, particularly, and focus on addressing the barriers to digital inclusion. I saw a colleague referenced them earlier, which was great to see, but the 5 barriers based on our GSMA research is addressing the affordability of data and devices, addressing knowledge and skills or lack thereof, safety and security concerns, access to networks and devices, and also relevant content and services. Thank you very much. I'll stop here.
Thank you very much, Ms. McDougall. I'll just like to check in the room if there's any other partner that would like to, as we check also online. I can see a raised hand. Please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you, moderator. I am Serena Isita from the Women's Global Network for Reproductive Rights based in the Philippines. It is a privilege to share recommendations from the Asia-Pacific Civil Society Forum. Gender norms and stereotypes rooted in patriarchal beliefs and religious fundamentalisms continue to limit women and girls' access to STEM education and careers. Despite programs and policies aimed at increasing representation, these deep-rooted cultural barriers must be addressed at the family, community, and state levels to fully address the challenges faced in STEM. Aside from putting in place the necessary programs, policies, and incentives to increase women and girls' participation in STEM, patriarchal and cultural norms should be addressed by implementing comprehensive sexuality education and emphasizing autonomy, including bodily autonomy of women and girls in all their diversity. CSE provides a complete understanding of every individual, especially women, girls, and young people regarding their sexual and reproductive health. With this, we urge member states to first, promote equitable representation and active engagement of women and girls in all their diversity in the development of STEM curricula, programs, and policies. Second, leverage the achievements of female trailblazers in STEM education to inspire and encourage women and girls in all their diversity to continue advancing in the field. Third, integrate scientifically sound and evidence-based comprehensive sexuality education into STEM education to challenge gender stereotypes and norms impacting young people of all genders. And fourth, implement formal programs, policies, and allocate funding to advance STEM education, careers, and entrepreneurship opportunities for women and girls in all their diversity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your submission. I'm just checking again around the room as we're checking online. Any hands? Yes, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. I'm Farah Kabir. I'm the country director of ActionAid Bangladesh, so part of the civil society and coming from Bangladesh. I concur with what has been said by the previous speaker. I just want to add that to enable girls to come into STEM, it has to start from primary and middle school. So the encouragement and the important point that was made only once in the morning is affordability and availability of equipments for young girls, especially those marginalized. They cannot afford that. So that is a very important aspect if we want to be inclusive and share this tool and technology amongst all young people. And my last point is there should be encouragement of young people to deal with cyber security issues. We try to only think of tech firms and tech experts, but Bangladesh is one country where a young person of only 15 years old, he came up with he took action against cyberbullying by creating a WhatsApp, an app, and he was awarded the Malala Child Award for it. So Sadat is someone that we believed in, and we supported him when everybody else, when he was only 14 and 15, no one believed in him, but he did that. And today, Cyber Teen is an app in Bangladesh which is trying to support young people to deal with cyber crimes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that submission. I can see there's a lot of rich knowledge around here and experiences. It would be great to also hear more from others. I'm just checking around carefully in case I miss anybody. No raised hands? Oh, yes, sorry. The floor is yours. Thank you.
My name is Macha Ponin. My organization, Sangsan Anakot Yawachon, we are support young people to create their own future. We are working with young indigenous children, women, and also LGBTIQ. In terms of barrier, when we're talking about technologies, and everything around it, we kind of forget that in the indigenous community, we don't have the school. And even we have the school, the teacher don't have enough expertise when talking about text. We have to address that in the first place. Second, in many places in the rural area and indigenous area, we not only have the economic difficulties that make us unable to own devices, but also there is no infrastructure. We don't have the signals. We don't have the internet connections, and government not providing infrastructure to that. Therefore, it creates a big gap. When the student in the city be able to study about the science, about the technologies, about computers, but our children are left behind. And when we're talking about it, it's kind of, we put the star on the sky, and we asking us to climb to the sky, which is impossible, and how much this consultation could address this. And as you see, we don't have indigenous model in the text who can providing the scholarships for the indigenous people that they can see someone from their community that can study text. So I think should be addressed. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that important submission. Those are some very important points about just how far back some of us have to work to be able to even just start discussions about inclusive education, especially in the areas of STEM. Thank you. Any other submissions? Just checking around the floor. And I have been asked to just state that in the event that you did make a submission in the first session, that there is room to actually come in again at this point because we do have time. I can see that there are none in the room, and I think there are none online. Yes? With that, I'd just like to thank you all for your kind attention and your very interesting contributions, and also to the panel, and to hand over to my colleague Jessica. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Uma, and for all of our participants who participated in this plenary discussion. This brings us to the end of our agenda for our first day of this regional consultation. Please join us tomorrow at 9:30 for our last two thematic sessions, the review of the recommendations and plenary contributions to the recommendations. Online participants will be able to log in by 9:10 tomorrow morning. Thank you and have a good evening.